Good morning. Welcome to the Bar Advisory Group meeting of July 16, 2020. My name is Patrick Doré, and I'm Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. This is officially our second meeting of the year, which with the April meeting having been canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This first ever virtual meeting for this group via WebEx is necessary due to the ongoing challenges of meeting in person and the need to practice physical distancing as a result of the pandemic. We expect there may be some hiccups using this new format for the first time, and thank you for your patience as we work through the agenda for the meeting. The meeting is being webcast as is traditionally done. I want to thank Cesar Victoria, who I see is listed as one of our panel members, who is organizing the webcast of that meeting, of this meeting. A copy of the webcast will be available on the bar website sometime next week. Now, before we introduce the BAG members and start with our agenda, I would like to introduce Sarah Arani from the Department of Consumer Affairs Solid Planning Solutions Office, who is serving as our moderator today for today's BAG meeting. Sarah will cover some of the logistics involved in today's WebEx format. Welcome, Sarah, and thank you for hosting us today.
Hello, this is the moderator of the meeting. Welcome to the Bar Advisory Committee meeting. Before we get started, I would like to remind BAG members and senior staff who are not speaking to please mute your microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder, or I will simply mute your microphone. To facilitate public comment today, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the Bureau Chief reaches a point in the agenda in which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested, and at the Bureau's direction, I will turn on and announce the opening of the Q&A feature. If a member of the public would like to participate in public comment, they must enter the WebEx event through the link provided in the agenda. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by clicking on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of their WebEx screen. We'll share instructions on the screen each time for your reference. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, members of the public who wish to make a public comment will type, "I would like to make a public comment," and send to all panelists. Any other communication will not be responded to. And it is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment. I will take comments in the order that they are received, and I will call on members of the public and unmute their microphones. The member of the public will be given time to speak for their comment, and once they are done, I will mute their microphone at the conclusion of their comment. And then we will move on to the next member of the public who has indicated they would like to make public comment. Please note that the Q&A feature is only being used as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the Bureau. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. If any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the Bureau. If you do not have a microphone, please click on Communicate at the top of your screen, select Audio Connection, call an Audio Connection. If you need further assistance, please refer to the How to Join DCA WebEx event guide that was provided with the Bureau meeting link. And that concludes my opening statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, to you and your team for your support of today's meeting. I really appreciate all the effort that has gone into the planning for this event. I wanted to add one other item to what you've stated, is that normally when we meet in person, I call on, after presentations are made, I call on advisory group members for any questions or comments. I will stick to that format. Using the hand raising icon that we've already reviewed with the advisory group members in advance of the meeting. We'll use that feature to call on you for any questions or comments. When all questions and comments from the advisory group members have concluded, we will open it up for public questions and comments as you have already relayed to all of us. Lastly, for all of the presenters and any of the BAG members, because of this virtual meeting and the inability to meet in person, I would, as I am doing here now, ask that each of us, I know it's somewhat uncomfortable and we're not necessarily used to it, but if you could turn on your video in addition to your audio, I think it brings a face-to-face ability for the meeting that we would otherwise have if we were meeting in person. Otherwise, you can turn off the video, but I think it would be nice for everyone who's taking part in this meeting to be able to at least see the person who's involved in the question or comment that's being made, or the presentation, if you will. All right, let's move forward. Next, I want to welcome all of the BAG members and any of their alternates who may be joining us today. I think just one alternate is with us, Bud Rice. Normally, when we meet in person, the BAG members introduce themselves. Today, because of this new meeting format, I will read the names of all BAG members present and the associations they represent. Of course, if I've messed up in any way in pronunciation of your names or your associations that you're representing, please let me know or please point that out. Let me begin with the introductions. In no particular order, they're just on a list for me. Jeffrey Cox with the Automotive Maintenance and Repair Association, Motorist Assurance Program. Gary Conover with the California Automotive Wholesalers Association. Ruben Parra with California Automotive Teachers. Johan Gallo with the California Automotive Business Coalition. And alternate member Bud Rice, also with the California Automotive Business Coalition. David Robinette with ICAR. George Ritz with California Automotive Teachers. Megan McKernan with Automobile Club of Southern California. Elisa Reinhardt with the California New Car Dealers Association, also serving as an alternate member to Brian Moss, who's the primary member for the California New Car Dealers Association on the advisory group. Thank you, Elisa. Nikki Ayers, Independent Automotive Professionals Association. Jack Molodanoff with the California Auto Body Association. David Kusa with the Automotive Service Councils of California. And lastly, Vince Gregory with AAA, Northern California. Anyone I've missed? I believe that's it for the advisory group members and the two alternate members who are also joining us today. Thank you and welcome. Before we get started, I wanted to say a couple of things. Obviously, we are living through a pandemic that has completely changed our world. And with that, we are all learning day to day how to work through it. Same is true here at the Bureau of Automotive Repair, where we have experienced many changes over the past few months. We have experienced office closures and reopenings, adjusted to wide-scale teleworking, and responded to evolving, almost daily, health and safety guidelines. These are changes, big changes to the way we do business that will affect the way we do business for the foreseeable future. As an organization, we aim to be as flexible as possible and adapt to these changes as they come to us. Our goal since March has been to do just that. We are working every day to find ways to help our licensees and consumers through these challenging times. Our stated mission is to serve Californians through effective regulation of the automotive repair and smog check industry, with a vision to educate and empower consumers by promoting competitive automotive repair marketplace, and a model vehicle emissions reduction program. In these times of change, I can assure you all that our mission and vision has not. I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe out there. And now that I got that out of the way, let's get on to business and on to our first presentation. Carrie Holmes, who is the new Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations with the Department of Consumer Affairs, joins us today to give an update from the Director's Office. Welcome, Carrie.
Okay. Can you see me?
I can.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pat. Good morning, advisory members and Bureau Chief Duray. It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Carrie Holmes, Deputy Director, Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me to introduce myself and provide an update to the Bar Advisory Group. I was just appointed by Governor Newsom to serve as Deputy Director beginning June 1st, so I'm still very new. I'm here to serve as a resource to you. I most recently came from the Senate, where I was a legislative director for Senator Jim Bell. Before my time in the legislature, I served at the Secretary of State's office as Assistant Deputy. I've always been passionate about consumer protection, and I'm very happy to be here working at DCA with all the boards and bureaus. As you know, I'm part of a new leadership team. In January, right around your last meeting, Governor Newsom appointed Lourdes Castro Ramirez as the new Secretary of the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. Secretary Castro Ramirez assumed the position effective March 2nd, 2020. Previously, she served as the president of University Health Systems Foundation. In addition, on March 5th, Governor Newsom appointed Jennifer Simoes as the department's Deputy Director of Legislation. And finally, on April 16th, Christine Lally was appointed by Governor Newsom as the Chief Deputy Director at DCA, and she joined us this month. Ms. Lally most recently served as Deputy Director of the Medical Board of California. As you may recall from her January update, Director Kim Kirkmeyer places a high priority on something that is dear to your heart, regulations. So now that she has her leadership team in place, she will be able to devote even more time to this priority. So I know BAR has been working with the regulations unit created by DCA Legal to directly assist boards and bureaus with the regulation packages. And you've also been part of the Sharewell pilot. For our guests who may not know, regulation development at the department involves 3 entities: the board and bureau staff, department staff, and staff of the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. So the department developed a department-wide online system to electronically manage and track regulation packages and streamline their review, and that's called Sharewell. So Sharewell testing is complete, and there will be regular check-ins with the pilot groups to solicit feedback, and the feedback will be evaluated to determine the next stages of the rollout plan. So all this work continues, even though, as Pat was saying, the COVID-19 has altered the way DCA does business now and the way we will do business in the future. DCA temporarily had to close all offices to the public in March in response to the state and local stay-at-home orders to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. DCA and the boards and bureaus within DCA have implemented telework plans and have required physical distancing for those employees who cannot telework. The licensing and enforcement functions at the boards and bureaus are continuing to take place, though several functions are done remotely. After following a detailed risk assessment and implementation of a COVID-19 prevention plan, DCA offices reopened to the public on June 15th. DCA has implemented preventative measures to safeguard the health and safety of our employees and visitors. We are also looking at identifying areas where changes could be made on an ongoing basis for some process efficiencies. We are truly grateful to you for continued service and to the staff who is being so flexible. Your bureau plays such an important role in protecting California consumers. I look forward to getting to know you and your programs better. And I hope the day comes soon where we can meet in person. In the meantime, if you have any questions or need anything from DCA, please don't hesitate to reach out. I may not have the answer right away, being new, but I will find it for you. Board and Bureau Relations is here to help. Thank you again for inviting me to your meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. Wonderful job there. Any questions, comments from the advisory group members? All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
All right, well, feel free to follow up if any come up. I'll turn off the video, but I'll be here.
Any public comments?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau Chief, I will go ahead and turn on the Q&A feature of WebEx. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon of a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference. And I'll pause for a little bit to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature. This is the moderator again. All right, at this time, it looks like there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, that would be fine, and we'll move to our next presentation.
All right, the Q&A feature is now closed.
Thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right, our next presentation, will be our standard updates on legislative and regulatory issues. Here for our legislation and regulations update is the team of Holly O'Connor and Lucy Sarkeesian with our Bar Executive Office. Welcome.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, and this is the moderator. We'll be passing over presenter status to Lucy. All right, Lucy, you have, if you could go back to slide 9, that'll be the beginning of your presentation.
I believe we're going to have Holly. Was it Holly going first? I think we had switched the order to allow for regulations first and then legislation.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and I will be providing this morning's regulations updates. We have 9 proposals that I will be discussing with you, beginning with the rehabilitation criteria for licensure. The purpose of this package is to establish criteria for determining rehabilitation of an applicant or licensee when considering the denial, suspension, or petition for reinstatement of a license due to a criminal conviction, and also to establish criteria for determining when a crime is substantially related to the qualifications, functions, and duties of a licensee. This package is currently, the comment period closed on June 4th and is currently being reviewed by DCA Legal, and after their review is complete, we will submit it to OAL for adoption. Okay, the next one I'm going to review is the Smog Check biometric equipment. This one is still under development at BAR, but the purpose of this package is to require the use of a biometric and web camera device when performing a smog check. It will require smog check stations to allow BAR access whenever inspections are being performed, even if the inspections are being performed outside of normal business hours. And it will also require that smog check inspectors allow BAR staff remote access to the inspection process via the internet when prompted by the BAR OAS software. Our next steps for this package are to conduct a public workshop and then finalize our regulations to submit to DCA Legal for their review. The next package is our STAR program updates, which amend the STAR eligibility criteria, provide STAR suspension process to be consistent with statute, and delete outdated Gold Shield provisions. This is undergoing the DCA formal review process, and our next steps will be to publish the notice and begin our 45-day public comment period. Our Smog Check repair assistance package is intended to increase repair assistance participation by providing higher repair contributions. reducing the pre-repair diagnostic fees for low-income vehicle owners, and to remove unnecessary eligibility restrictions pertaining to vehicle registration. We submitted an emergency regulation package to OAL on June 22nd. However, we withdrew on July 2nd to make some adjustments to the text. We are going to be resubmitting this to OAL in the very near future. And if approved, we will have 240 days to adopt as a permanent rulemaking package. Our laws and regulations training package is amending bar disciplinary guidelines to establish laws and regulations training as a rehabilitative option for respondents. Administrative law judges and bar would have the option to require this is also undergoing DCA formal review process and was submitted October 21st of 2019. Once DCA has completed their formal review, we will publish the notice to begin the 45-day public comment period. Our unincorporation of applications package will unincorporate our licensing and consumer assistance program applications and list the components in regulation. And it will also update application review times. This is still undergoing DCA informal review process, and once we complete that, we will submit to DCA for formal review. Our bar certified training providers package makes requirements for certification of smog check training providers consistent with current licensing requirements. We had a public workshop a few years ago, but we resubmitted to DCA for informal review December of last year, and it's still undergoing DCA informal review, and once that is completed, we will resubmit for formal review. Our brake and lamp certification programs revise identification numbers for licensing applications, licensing renewal and equipment requirements. It revises the handbooks on inspection procedures for brake and lamp systems, and revises the brake and lamp certificates of adjustment and compliance. It also eliminates the gross vehicle weight rating restriction of vehicles to be inspected and certified by Class C stations. We are still developing this at BAR. Our next steps, we will be conducting a public workshop to draft the regulations and finalize our proposal to submit to DCA for informal review. Our auto body equipment and supplemental restraint systems package, we had a public workshop October of 2019, and it was submitted for informal review to DCA on June 23rd. This package requires auto body repair shops to have access to all repair, testing, and measuring equipment and current reference materials necessary to diagnose, section, replace, or repair all structural damage. It also requires that all auto body repair equipment meets current trade standards for the work being performed. And it adopts the following components to the definition of the supplemental restraint system. And those components are airbag modules, sensors, computer modules, inflatable restraint systems, seat belts, seatbelt pretensioners, seatbelt structural components, and steering columns. This is currently with DCA for informal review, and once it goes through the informal review process, BAR will submit to DCA for the formal review. That's it for our current regulatory proposals. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
This is Patrick DeRay, Chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. Thank you very much, Holly. We will open it up for questions from the BAR Advisory Group members in just a second. I did notice on the last slide, a public workshop held on October 17th, 2020. Obviously, that hasn't happened. I believe that must have been last year, 2019.
That's correct. It was October 17th, 2019. Sorry about the typo.
No problem. All right, I'm looking for Looking for a hands up for questions and comments from our bar advisory group members. Having a little difficulty with the mouse and being able to scroll down on our list. I'm not sure I see anyone's hand raised at this time.
This is the moderator, and just as a reminder for BAG members, that raise hand icon will be at the very bottom of your participants panel. The WebEx screen is very tiny, so if you're having trouble finding it, it should be at the very bottom.
I see Ruben Parra has his hand raised. Ruben, take it away as our first question or comment.
Thank you, Pat. So I believe we had indicated, I believe we had asked for a little bit more clarification on for the bar certified training providers as to what was going to be recommended or what changes were going to be made. And I don't think we ever received that. So on slide 9, where it talks about bar certified training providers, and it says makes requirements for certification more consistent. I was interested in exactly which items were going to be addressed specifically, and can we get some more clarification on that?
Sure. I think we were hoping to finalize the package and then present it to the bar advisory group member in a public workshop format. I think the details of that package are still being worked out. I know it's a little nebulous, but I think it's, for the most part, this regulation is trying to play catch up with some things that we did with our licensing program back in 2012 when we split the smog check, test, and repair license into 2 licenses, both a smog check inspector license and a smog check repair technician license. So those licenses used to be just 1 license. We did an occupational analysis to determine that those were 2 different job functions and that potentially we were that license and the requirements involved in getting that 1 license potentially were an obstacle to individuals getting into the profession, that they could potentially be licensed as an inspector and then graduate, if you will, their way into the repair technician license, which has far more training requirements. So we split that 1 license into 2 in 2012, and I think some of the things that we are proposing with this regulatory package is to make our certification standards consistent with that new licensing structure. That's kind of it in a nutshell, but the details obviously need to be shared with the bar advisory group, and we hope to do that. I don't know if October's meeting will be timely, if we'll be ready for the October's meeting coming up later this year, but certainly I hope to have a workshop, if not in October, early part of next year. But that was what we were envisioning in terms of sharing with you the more details of that provision. I think we have some idea of what it's going to entail, but we thought we'd do it in a workshop format.
Okay, Pat. I'll note then that it was indicated that we would be given that information at a workshop. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I see George Ritz, also with California Automotive Teachers, hand raised.
On the laws and regulations training, who's going to develop those courses, and is there any work being done on those courses at this time? Because getting things through the community college curriculum committee is a process that rivals the bar's process. Did you hear me?
I did. I didn't. I'm trying to think who's out there with the Bureau of Automotive Repair to answer the question. I don't believe that there was. I think there was a number of hours envisioned. I don't know if Holly has that information handy. There was a minimum number of hours. I believe we were thinking
8 hours.
8 hours. Yeah, that's my recollection as well. I do not believe there was going to be any structure to this mandated, because we have currently we don't have the authority to mandate this training. It was just an option that was going to be included as part of our disciplinary guidelines to guide judges, also to help us with potentially coming to terms in a settlement agreement with a disciplinary action against a shop. We might ask for laws and regulations training. At this time, there is nothing in statute that requires that, but we were for automotive instructors to build the laws and regulations training. The only training component currently in statute is relative to the smog check program, as we all know. So something more more in depth and more specific to requiring what that would look like would probably be a statutory change that would be needed. I think we were of the opinion that if you build it, they will come, and hoping that if something like this existed and started getting pointed to through disciplinary actions of proposed decisions by administrative law judges, or again through settlement agreements where we're putting stations on probation and asking for laws and regulations training, when licensees go and ask for that, again, hoping that we'll be seeing the industry respond to that. But at this point, there are no I don't know if there's any formal criteria or elements to that training in our disciplinary guidelines in this current draft. Is that correct, Holly?
So I'm working on the regulation package for the disciplinary guidelines, and we do have some criteria in the sense of that it should be either a classroom setting or an online setting, and we do specify what topics should be covered, such as estimated requirements, customer authorization, separate standards, sublet repair, return of parts. There's various subject matters to be discussed during that 8-hour time period, or a minimum of 8-hour time period. And so within the disciplinary guidelines, we do list out kind of some requirements of what we would like to see in this course. And as Pat mentioned, it's kind of those who'd like to build it will build it, and then we can be able to assist during the disciplinary process of assigning or requiring licensees or former licensees to take some training.
But at this point, there is no. Thank you for pointing that out. By the way, I had forgotten the fact that we had pointed to various laws and regulations that we would want, namely the estimate and authorization and invoicing requirements of the Automotive Repair Act. But there are other features of the Automotive Repair Act that we would also want to be incorporated or included in a course like this. But there is no beyond that kind of loose outline or structure. There's no formal structure being developed by the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And there is no current, what I was getting to with respect to the statute, there is no certification of schools or instructors for anything outside of the smog check program.
Correct.
So I guess if you're going to want the schools to teach these classes, maybe you could send that brief outline out so that because it does take about a year to get a new course through the curriculum process. And so that it might be ready when you are ready.
Certainly, we can do that. That would be outlined in the draft regulation. We're probably a year away at least from having anything adopted on this. Hopefully sooner. I always say that. I'm always optimistic about the regulatory process. But knowing that we have still a long ways to go, I think there'll be plenty of time to get this in place at the schools, but we can provide that to our bar advisory group, a draft outline of the regulatory proposal before we've actually opened it up for formal public comments. Happy to do that.
This is the moderator real quick. I see that bar staff Bill Thomas has his hand raised. I'm going to unmute him real quick.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I'm trying to find out how to turn on my camera. Oh, no, my video is disabled. So I will just run without it. To comment to George's question and echo what Pat and Lucy have said already, it's really kind of a write it right on steroids, if you will. It's for those facilities that have been subjected to discipline that we feel, or the ALJ feels, really needs a refresher course on the estimate authorization, the customer communication requirements, and things like that. It's far more in depth than our Write It Right presentation that Bureau staff does at facilities, and that's kind of the vision to answer George's question. I believe there was a 2003 Smog Check update class that was focused on laws and regulations. It's going to follow along that a little bit, except for it's not going to talk about testing requirements and anything like that. It's really going to be focused on B&P estimate and authorization sections.
Thank you, Bill, for the clarification. B&P, Business and Professions, that's the code section that the Automotive Repair Act is under. And this is for all automotive repair transactions. So getting beyond Smog Check. Any other bar advisory group members with questions or comments relating to the regulations update? Ruben and George, you still have your hands up. Are there additional comments or questions?
Not for me. I think I took my hand down. But
George just did. Yes, Ruben has his hand still up. Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to the public for any questions, comments from the public. Obviously, the bar advisory group can jump back into the picture. If you raise your hand, I'll call on you, but let's move over to the public.
All right, this is the moderator. I'm going to take back presenter role from Lucy just real quick so I can get that public comment slide up. All right, and I will go ahead and turn on the Q&A feature now. Okay, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference. I'll pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature. All right, this is the moderator. Looks like I have a question from Jean Lopez. Jean, I'm gonna unmute your microphone in just 1 second. All right, Jean, I am unmuting your microphone now and you'll be allowed to speak. You're unmuted.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief DeRay and BAG members. Thank you for letting me make a comment and joining this meeting. So if you could go back to slide 19 regarding auto body equipment and supplemental restraint systems. Thank you. So what the collision industry is seeing today are vehicles equipped with advanced driver assistance systems, otherwise known as ADAS. And I believe that the DCA should also review the requirements around ADAS. And in this language here, it says that the purpose is to require auto body repair shops to have access to all repair, testing, and measuring equipment, and that are necessary to diagnose, section, replace, or repair structural damage. Well, while these ADAS can provide some safety features like blind spot monitoring or cruise control adoption and so on, while they're not necessarily safety systems because they can be turned off by the driver, they are systems that need to be checked or scanned and ultimately calibrated before the repairs are completed. And so I think that if we could get ADAS included in here beyond the supplemental restraint systems. So if anyone wants to comment on that.
Hi, this is Holly O'Connor. We are working on that. We've just barely started, and that will be a separate package from this one, so that we can get this one moving, but that we are beginning to work on that as well.
Thanks, Holly. I don't know if Jack or David Robinette want to respond to that, because they're seeing some of the requirements that vehicle manufacturers are putting on repairs as it relates to ADAS.
I see a hand up for Dave Kusa. Maybe he was going to respond to that question.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, so not so much a response as just expanding on a little bit. So I think, ultimately the solution for the ADAS calibration side of it will either be a mobile solution or a centralized solution where, an independent centralized solution where a company will, have a space available to bring a vehicle to in a sublet type fashion. The equipment is rather expensive. Space issues for properly setting up the vehicle is going to be unavailable in so many shops. I mean, you literally need 40 feet of uninterrupted space. So, maybe as we're considering these regulations, that it's not necessarily a requirement that the body shop would have those equipment or that equipment available, but just in a requirement that all the proper calibrations take place in some fashion, so that it's not incumbent upon the body shop to spend $50,000, $60,000 and not necessarily have space even to do it.
All right, good comment. Thank you very much, Dave. David Robinette with iCar. I see your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a great point about the ADAS systems being part of the safety systems on the vehicle that need to be addressed at the end of a repair or during the repair process. I think you're focusing here on the equipment and supplemental restraint systems in particular, and to the other point, ADAS systems are kind of their own thing apart from this conversation. However, they do integrate together. And so as far as training and awareness and what have you, that's definitely something that's got to be part of the dialogue going forward. And there's a lot of courses available about that now and more being developed as we speak. So when that becomes part of the conversation and we start looking into regulations or anything like that that might be going out to the public, we'll definitely want to have some efforts put towards identifying not only those systems, but also how to get those calibrated properly. Because to the previous point, it may not be something that gets done internal to the shops themselves. However, as the repairers, they may find themselves liable for those repairs and have to be able to account for them. So more to come on that as well.
Excellent point, Mr. Robinette. Thank you very much. Other questions from the BAR advisory group? I don't see any comments. How about additional members of the public or Mr. Lopez, Gene Lopez, are you still there or had any follow-up?
Yeah, I am still here. And as Dave Robinette mentioned, there's ongoing coursework that's taking place. I'm part of the Collision Industry Conference calibration committee, and we are creating a whiteboard video, if you will, on calibration workflow. So that should be completed, I would imagine, before our October meeting. So if given the opportunity, I'd like to share that. Maybe I could send it over to Dave or I could send it over to Jack, and they could present this 7-minute video on the calibration workflow.
We're always looking for agenda items. Thank you very much for offering one. Thank you, Gene.
Okay, thank you. I've got to sign off, so thanks everyone for your time.
Appreciate your attendance. Thank you. Other questions? Is the public comment screen still open? Sarah?
Yes, this is the moderator. Looks like there are no other individuals who've requested public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel now?
You may do so. Thank you.
Great. Q&A panel is now closed.
One last chance before we turn it over to the other half of the presentation on legislation. Anything else from the Bar Advisory Group members? I do not see any more hands. All right, thank you very much, Holly. And stick around. There might be a there might be something that comes up as it relates to legislation and any regulation packages. So we'll now turn it over to the second half of the presentation from Lucy Sarkeesian.
Great, this is the moderator. We'll be passing over presenter status back to Lucy again. Okay, Lucy, you have presenter status again.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everybody. Kind of going through the legislative important dates. We've had a really busy bill-packed legislative season. So one of the important dates for today is a June 26th deadline, which is the last day for Senate and Assembly to pass bills introduced in their House. So currently, the Senate and the Assembly reconvene from their summer recess, and kind of a couple important days. The August 21st deadline is the last day to amend bills on the floor, and then August 31st is the last day for each House to pass bills that are there. And then the governor's last day is September 30th to act on any of the passed legislation. So jumping right in, these are the following bills that are currently active, currently in progress with the legislature. We're going to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bills real quickly. And then, if you have any questions, we'll do a little comment period at the very end. So the first one is AB 2631 by Assemblymember Lowe. This is regarding consumer complaints. It was introduced in January 6th, and then currently it's in the Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development. It was moved there on June 23rd. This bill essentially prohibits a licensee from including language in a contract for a consumer service, limiting the consumer's ability to file a complaint with the licensing agency, meaning BAR in this case, or other DCA boards and bureaus, or participating in an agency's investigation into the licensee. Additionally, this bill provides that it's a violation of this section by a licensee. It would constitute unprofessional conduct subject to discipline by the licensing agency. And it also provides any waiver. If there's any waiver of the proposed provision, it would be considered void and unenforceable. And then our next bill we have is AB 1616, again by Assemblymember Lowe. These are regarding expunged convictions. Currently, it's in the Senate Committee on Business and Professions and Economic Development. This bill essentially requires DCA boards and bureaus to do the following when a person's license is revoked due to a criminal conviction and the person has obtained an expungement. So if the person reapplies for licensure or has been relicensed, we would post the notification of the expungement order on the board bureau website. And then if the person is not currently licensed and does not apply for a relicensure, we would remove the initial website posting of the license verification. Our next bill is AB 2113, again by Assemblymember Lowe, regarding licensing of refugees and immigrants. This bill would require programs within the Department of Consumer Affairs to expedite and assist the initial licensure process for an applicant who supplies satisfactory evidence that they are a refugee, have been granted political asylum, or have a special immigrant visa. Essentially, it would authorize DCA boards and bureaus to adopt regulations necessary to administer these provisions. Our next bill is AB 3045 by Assemblymember Gray regarding veterans and military spouse licensure. This bill essentially would require the issuance of licenses to veterans and active duty military spouses and domestic partners who hold active licenses in other jurisdictions within the country. And then next we have is SB 878 by Senator Jones regarding application processing timeframes. This bill would require each licensing program within DCA to prominently display on its website, at least quarterly, the current average time frame for processing initial and renewal license applications for each license it offers, or the combined average time frame for processing initial and renewal applications. And then the following are bills that did not move forward. So for the 2-year bills that were carried over from 2019, most of you may remember we had AB 161, which was regarding electronic proof of purchase. We had AB 210 by Assemblymember Vopel regarding smog check exemption. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 bills that did not continue, that were 2-year bills carried over from last year. And then for 2020, the following are the bills that are not moving forward. AB 1972, AB 2225, AB 2185. And so these were bills that did not pass their first house and did not meet the June 26th deadline. And as you can see in the highlight, we have AB 2454 by Assemblymember Lowe regarding the bar disciplinary cases, the Trusted Dealer Certification Program. And so we will be talking about that later today, but just kind of to give you a little bit more information, this bill essentially required the following: that a DCA director to employ legal counsel for the administration and enforcement of the Automotive Repair Act, that DCA director to appoint at least one administrative law judge for each bar field office, conduct administrative discipline proceedings. And then it also required that bar establish by regulation a trusted dealership program for our auto repair dealers. Any questions about the bills?
Do I see any hands of the advisory group? I do not see any hands at this time. We can open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and I'll be opening up the Q&A feature now. All right, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon of a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We're currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference right now. And I'll pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature. This is the moderator again. It looks like at this time there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, you can close the public comment period for this presentation. We do have a hand raised for one of our advisory group members, Bud Rice, with the California Automotive Business Coalition. I see your hand raised.
Yes, just a real quick comment. Sarah, the buttons that are down below, I and some of the other ones don't see the hand raised part. I was able to get to the hand raised by choosing a list of participants on the far right with the speaker's video at the top. And then at the very bottom, there's a small icon that lets you raise your hand. But the large icons that you've been showing were not visible to me on mine, and I think that's true of some others as well.
This is the moderator. Yes, that's correct. If you need to do the raise hand icon, you do have to have that participant list open. This is the moderator. Patrick, if you're currently speaking, your microphone is muted.
Thank you, Sarah. I knew that would happen at least once during this meeting. I do not see any other hands raised from the Bar Advisory Group members. I see an attendee who has his hand raised. That should have come through the public comment process, but there is
Would you like me to open up public comment again?
Yes, I don't, shows an attendee with his hand raised. Charlie Peters, he's not a Bar Advisory Group member, but it can ask a question through the comment process.
All right. Members of the public, please use the Q&A feature to indicate that you would like to make a public comment. If you have your hand raised, we won't be, I can't think of the word. We won't be calling on those. I will open up the Q&A feature now so that you can indicate that you would like to make a public comment. So the Q&A feature is now open. And please type, I would like to make a comment if you would like to verbally make a comment.
Well, if he comes back to this, we can
This
catch
is the
him.
moderator. It looks like no one has written in the Q&A that they would like to verbally make a comment.
Okay. All right. Any other BAG members with questions or comments? Obviously, there is a public comment period for items not on the agenda, but if anyone was unable to or come up with a comment during the presentation, we're not going to prevent you from asking a question later on in the meeting. So if you've forgotten something or something comes up later, you want to bring it up, feel free to do so. I would like to point out that Joanna Johnson with the Automotive Oil Change Association also has joined us. Welcome, Joanna. All right, I think we can close the comment period for this agenda item, and I do not see any other. I keep seeing Charlie Peters' hand raised.
This is the moderator. Unfortunately, I cannot lower his hand. He'll have to lower that himself. Would you like me to unmute him or have him type in the Q&A that he would like to make a comment?
Well, it obviously appears he's having some difficulties figuring out the public comment process. I can call on his hand.
Looks like he just lowered his hand.
Oh, he just lowered his hand. All right. Charlie, if you're listening and you're out there, please use the public comment box that's available when the moderator opens it up for public comments. All right, I'm going to move this agenda on. I think we'll close it and move on to our next presentation. I want to welcome, thank you first of all to Holly and Lucy. Excellent update from you on the legislation and regulations. All right, let's move on to our next presenter, Danielle Sires. I hope I pronounced it correctly, Danielle. My apologies. Okay. To lead a discussion with a brief presentation, I'm sure, on the legislation that Lucy had a slide up for on AB 2454 by Assembly Member Lowe. And if we could bring up that slide again, I'm sure that will be the focal point of Danielle's presentation and leading us all in a discussion on this bill. Thank you and welcome, Danielle.
Well, thank you, Chief DeRay, BAG members, members of the public for having me. First and foremost, Assemblymember Lowe was hoping to be able to join, and unfortunately, he's juggling 15 other Zoom meetings right now, as we all can probably understand. But he does say hello. So mostly, Lucy, thank you for briefing over this. Maybe I want to take this in two parts. The bill really addresses three different things, as you can see the bullet points here. The main objective of when we introduced this bill was to address the time frame in which cases are heard and ultimately a result if some sort is the outcome. So, our hope, whether we did it correctly or not, is to get to a point where we do have the ability to help move cases along faster. And that benefits both consumers as well as the professionals in the field to try to get resolve on those cases. The premise behind possibly trying to do cases before an administrative law judge is they are throughout the state. As if you've read the bill, the administrative law judges, in our view, would be a quicker, more expedited process. And those ALJs is what the acronym for them is. They are located throughout the state, and the premise would be to have those ALJs hear the cases in possibly looking at the different places that there's regional offices for bar. So, like I said, I definitely want to open this up to public comment. As Lucy alluded to, this bill is not moving forward this year, mostly just like hundreds of other bills is because it did not have an urgency related to COVID. So unfortunately, there's a lot of bills that are not moving forward this year, but it is something that we definitely want to introduce next year, doing it correctly from both a consumer perspective, a bar perspective, and stakeholders. And then the second part of that would be a follow-up, is to make sure that once those administrative law judges issue their opinion, is that the process can be expedited through bar. So to have more of a legal counsel within bar itself. So that's kind of the quick. Obviously, the premise behind this is the expedition, making sure that bar is properly prepared to deal with the cases. Caveat: the Attorney General has strong opinions on this. A lot of the cases do go through the Attorney General. All bar cases do. So we would be stepping on some toes there. So we want to be sure that we're careful and do it correctly. So that's where we want to lean back on you to see if there's opinions on how this can be done. And when we do reintroduce legislation next year, to make sure that you all have your say in as far as how that language is written. So those are the first two parts. Maybe Sarah, if you don't mind, we could open it up to public comment. I'm happy to answer any questions. But that could be the first part of what this bill had in it and what we will introduce next year.
See if there's thank you very much, Danielle. Let's see if there's any bar advisory group questions or comments related to those two provisions. I see Jack Moladano's hand raised. Jack, the California Auto Body Association.
Good morning, Danielle. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to comment on both those items. I think from the industry perspective, they do make sense. So employing legal counsel and having legal counsel be available to BAR would provide them the ability to file actions a lot quicker, instead of taking 6 months or whatever it takes at the Attorney General's office to file administrative action, or at least prepare the accusation. It can be done in weeks instead of months. So that makes sense in terms of speeding up the process. The other aspect was the administrative law judges, having them assigned to the BAR. Currently, there's a backlog of cases, and try to in terms of getting a courtroom or a room to hear the case, and it takes time. But if you have a judge that's assigned to the BAR, not only will they gain expertise, but you can even have them maybe hear some of these cases at the field offices. There are 12 field offices in the state. They have the room, they have the facilities. And so that would speed up the process as well. Because most legitimate business folks that do see themselves and may get into trouble, they want to get this thing resolved as quickly as possible. They don't want to have this over their heads for 3 years. They like to get the stuff resolved. They want to have their due process. And again, part of this this streamlining, I call it, would still allow due process for the facilities. But what it does is streamline it, and so it doesn't take 3 years to resolve something and have that over someone's a legitimate business a business person's head for 3 years, and maybe you can streamline the process. So the legal counsel would be, in my opinion, more of a front end streamline process, and then the BAR or the assignment of the judges, the administrative law judge would be more of the back end. But I think both those concepts and both those issues do benefit, I think, all parties here and maintain due process. So I just want to comment that those two, from my perspective and from my client's perspective, do make some sense. So we appreciate that. I do have some, after when you get into the other areas, I do have some other comments to add of how there's some other ideas we can maybe look at to improve the bill. I don't know if you want me to talk about them now or wait till later.
I mean, I'm good if we go ahead and just move forward. I'm open to any and all ideas that will strengthen this bill. Like I said, we want to introduce a bill that's kind of is an umbrella for all of these issues. So I say go for it.
Okay. So the two areas that that need statutory authority. One area has to do, and it was touched on earlier. I think Pat touched on it when George Ritz was talking about training programs for shops. They need statutory authority. Currently, they only have statutory authority for smog shops. So if a facility does get into some sort of trouble, there isn't a formal process where they can go and get some training. They can, if you're in the smog check program, you can get training. They do have facility or places where they are BR certified. But one of the things I think would be beneficial and maybe consider adding to this bill for next year, of course, would be giving the BR authority to be able to have facilities like basically like a traffic school. So if you get into trouble and you get a ticket, and you can end up going to traffic school to get that removed from your insurance, so you don't have that negative where your insurance goes up. So if the BR would have the ability and have some authority where they can at least approve certain schools to train shops that maybe get in trouble, I think that would be something we can talk about. And I think that would be an idea that should be considered in this bill. And the second item is that under current law, if someone does get in trouble with BAR, there is an informal process. So if they get a citation under the smog check program, they get a citation, the shop can appeal. But when they appeal in front of a BAR representative. So they get the ticket or they get the citation from a BAR representative, and then they end up having to have their case heard informally, of course, in front of one individual who's a BAR representative. That just seems inherently unfair. One of the things we had talked about is, why does it have to be one BAR person? Couldn't it be like a panel, maybe 3 people, a consumer advocate, and maybe someone from the industry as well, and a BAR representative? So maybe it's a panel of 3 independent folks. So that would be another area to maybe explore. BR would need statutory authority. So really, those were the 2 areas I think that, and I'd be happy to work with language and that sort of thing, but those would be the 2 areas I think would improve the bill, having an independent panel to hear these informal cases, and then also some sort of formalized training that non-smog shops can go to if they get themselves in trouble, rather than having to go through the administrative case, if they get a citation, because BAR is in the process of also working on citations for non-smog. And so I think that would make a lot of sense. So anyway, those were my 2 additional comments. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And one question is in regards to the traffic school or the class that would qualify. Is that a course that is already approved? Do you envision that being a new course that would be developed, or have you had thought on that?
Yeah, so it would be essentially the thought would be laws and regulations, something the BR is already working on for estimates, invoices. I think it's something, they talked about an 8-hour course. And that would be available to a facility, again, that may have had some paperwork violations, or they end up getting a citation, and they can go and attend. Nowadays it would be all online, but they can attend this course. And if they only have, they have one bad day where they end up having an issue, and if they, within a 12-month or 16-month period, just like, traffic school, you're eligible if you get one ticket within a, 16-month or 12-month period. I'm not really sure what the time frame is. You can attend, you get your certificate, you get your certificate, and that way, at least the shop themselves would not be negatively impacted down the line, because on citations right now, currently, if you do get a citation, it becomes public, and everyone has a bad day. But this way, it would not become public if it's one time within that that time frame. So yeah, that's kind of what we're envisioning. Very similar to what the DMV does now with traffic school.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that very much, and I think that's something that we can definitely explore. So thank you, as always, Jack.
Just thought I'd jump in here real quickly. Thank you, Jack, for the comments. Obviously, the laws and regs training that we've been talking about up to this point envisions it being tied to a disciplinary matter, a proposed decision from an administrative law judge, being able to point to something in the disciplinary guidelines that exist for the Bureau of Automotive Repair and our regulations, or for us to point to it when we're settling a case, a formal disciplinary case, and adding it to the list of penalties, if you will. It obviously has other capabilities, kind of along the lines of what Jack is talking about. If we were to expand our existing citation program to other areas beyond the 2 areas that we currently have in our regulation authority to issue citations for smog check program violations, Jack said someone who missed a component on a vehicle that and didn't inspect the vehicle correctly. It wasn't necessarily a fraudulent act. It was a tampered condition of missing, modified, disconnected system on the vehicle that was, as Jack put it, the person had a bad day. And we issue citations for that currently. The other area where we issue citations is for unlicensed or unregistered activity. And there is an informal appeals process for that, as Jack pointed out. It's just a one-person informal review process that you can ask or appeal for those citations in those 2 areas, as well as a formal review of the matter before an administrative law judge. You have both those options. We have talked, and this is what I think led to the proposals that Jack's talking about, is we have talked about expanding that regulatory authority for citations to other automotive repair related transactions outside of smog check and obviously outside of the unlicensed or unregistered activity. So the traffic school concept, I think, is where Jack is thinking that is proposing that someone who might be cited for a paperwork violation relating to the documentation and authorization process potentially could go and get that if they were cited, and if we had citations authorizing a citation to be issued in that circumstance, that someone could go and get that. Well, first they'd have the ability to appeal it under Jack's proposal under a panel as opposed to a single person at the Bureau informally reviewing it. It's actually the Bureau chief or his or her designee, and I actually don't hear those matters. I actually have that assigned to an individual in our office here at headquarters. but Jack's proposing that would have the opportunity to be reviewed by a three-person, including, which would include bar, a three-person panel. But that you also could, if it was confirmed, the violation was confirmed, you could go and address that matter through traffic school, it sounds like, and potentially not have that be appearing as citations due on your record. I'm trying to capture what I think you're saying, Jack, in relation to some of the ideas that we've openly discussed, but not in a formal process yet. We're still kind of toying with the idea of expanding our citation authority. I had hoped to have a presentation on that concept for today's meeting. I just thought the timing wasn't necessarily the best with all that's going on in the world. I thought maybe that should, and we weren't necessarily ready for it, but maybe for our October meeting, we can have a presentation on that proposal. I will say, and I've been speaking a little bit longer than I had hoped on this because I wanted to turn it over to everybody else. I don't think we were planning to have citations for paperwork violations. It is a very slippery slope for us and probably for the industry as well. We receive upwards of 15, sometimes as close to 20,000 complaints a year that we mediate. Each and every one is investigated. And you could probably find a violation in each and every one of them in terms of documentation. The Automotive Repair Act has a lot of requirements. Not everybody's up to speed on every nuance of it. There are some very core and basic concepts to it, but there are some intricate little details to it that there could potentially be violations. It could be if we did as an organization, if we issued a citation for each and every one of those violations, I do worry about how that impacts the appeals process and potentially going into not just informal appeals and hopefully, as Jack has envisioned, a panel could address most of those and eliminate the need to go forward with a formal appeal. But there's no guarantee of that. Obviously, if someone feels like they are right, they have the right to appeal it all the way to an ALJ. I do worry about how that might clog the system, so to speak, for more serious violations of the Automotive Repair Act that we're trying to address with formal disciplinary matters, namely fraudulent repairs that are performed on vehicles, where repairs that were performed were not, that were billed for, were never performed, or repairs that were performed were not unnecessary repairs. There was an inducement to get someone to repair the vehicle in a way that wasn't necessary. So those are the matters that we care about getting through the formal appeals process through the two measures I think you talked about at the outset. Those two proposals address that particular issue. So I'll stop here, but I think I wanted to put into context some of Jack's proposals as it relates to the discussion we've been having quite openly, but not necessarily with any formal proposal yet to share with anyone, and hoping to do so later in October, but to expand our existing citation program. All right. Is that, Jack, that kind of, as I see your proposals, kind of relating to an expanded citation program for the Bureau of Automotive Repair?
Yeah, you touched on them. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I see a couple of other hands raised. Johan Gallows was the first I had seen. Johan, welcome. Johan's representing the California Automotive Business Coalition, or CalABC.
Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. California Automotive Business Coalition is in support of AB 2454 as far as the first 2 points. I think we've seen even on the workers' comp system how having a panel of judges freed up the court system and expedited cases, which is definitely needed with the Bureau of Automotive Repair, as they're constantly under attack by the media and others over how long it takes the Attorney General to process cases. So having said that, we're in support of the first 2 points. We do have, and I know you haven't covered it yet, on the items for a trusted dealership program. We've worked on this for many years. I worked with the Bureau since 1985, and we've tried variations of that over the years. And given just the sheer turnover in automotive repair shops, it's very hard to have a certified program for a repair facility when you have the kind of turnover that you see with technicians. So we are definitely willing to work with Assemblymember Lowe on this matter, and look forward to a continued dialogue with you and the rest of the staff on Assemblymember Lowe's team.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. The other hands I see, Dave Kusa will take next. Dave Kusa with the California Automotive Service Councils of California.
Thanks, Pat. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning.
So Pat, encouraged by the comments of, kind of maybe limiting the issuing of citations, because I think you're absolutely correct that if we're going to issue a citation for every, I that's not dotted or T that's not crossed, it's going to kind of go backwards on this bill in the hope to expedite issues that are, the fraud and the criminal type activity that we want to expedite. With that being said, as Jack noted, Danielle, that the legitimate shop owner that may have made a mistake and is dealing with some investigation would really like to get that taken care of as quickly as possible. And the other side of that coin is that as legitimate shop owners, we recognize it's an unfortunate reality in our industry, as with many, that there are criminals out there, and we would really like to get those criminals moved out of the system as quickly as possible. It's unfortunate that someone finds out that they're being, prosecuted. It takes 2 years, 3 years to have something happen while they continue to take advantage of the consumer for that amount of time. So, perhaps in a discussion with the Attorney General that, we know where the resistance might come from, that is I think a good tool to make them aware of that, there are bad people, and we would like those bad people out of our system as quickly as possible, and not leaving a black mark on our industry that we see sometimes on many of the news reports that kind of spurred this action. So that's just my last comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Right, George Ritz with the California Automotive Teachers.
Just a couple of comments about the class. In order for a class to be distance ed, the instructor has to be certified in distance education, and the curriculum has to meet different standards. So if it's going to be an online course, things are different than an in-person course right now. Currently, last semester, the chancellor waived the requirement for distance ed certification for instructors, and I'm not sure whether or not he's going to do that again for next semester, but just a couple of things to think about.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the Bar Advisory Group members on those first two proposals? All right, let's, moderator Sarah, would you please open it up for public comment?
All right, this is the moderator, and I will go ahead and open up the Q&A feature for public comment. All right, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark within the square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the slide right now. All right, and it looks like I do have a question from Nikki Ayers. Nikki, did you fall out of presenter status? It looks like. So let me go ahead and promote you back up. Apologies for missing that. There are quite a number of people on this call.
I see Nikki.
All right.
I did see
Nikki,
her.
I promoted you back up to a panelist. So you should be able to mute and unmute yourself now.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Welcome, Nikki.
Hi. Would this not be a time to start talking about looking at registering at least service advisors or start getting service advisors licensed? Because a good part of all of our problems are service advisors that hop from shop to shop. That's my comment.
Thank you, Nikki.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki. Let's see. Okay, we've still got the public comment. Charlie, if you're interested in making a public comment, please use the icon with the question mark and write, I would like to make a comment. Sarah, as the moderator, I don't think Charlie has been able to figure out or doesn't have the capability to make the public comment or use that public comment feature. I do see a hand raised. You can unmute him and allow him to make his public comment, please, through that mechanism.
All right, this is the moderator, Charlie. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Yes, hello. Is there someone there who can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm getting a whole lot of feedback here, so let me take it down a little bit. I just heard a comment about something to the effect that we need to get rid of all the bad guys. And just prior to that, I noted a conversation that there is not one complaint that's ever issued that doesn't have an ability to get somebody out of the program. So when our purpose is to get rid of bad guys, the answer is everybody's a bad guy. And us consumers out here are not going to have anybody to fix our car if we use that criteria. Wondered if anybody had any thoughts on that.
Hi, Charlie. This is Danielle from Assembly Business and Professions Committee. I think that, you make an excellent point, and we want to make sure that there's a system that allows, and that's the process of hearing these cases and making sure that there is, legal opinions and there's people who oversee the complaints is the idea behind judging, for lack of a better term, who are the good actors and who are the bad actors. So the process that is in place, that is the goal of that, is to not deem everyone a bad actor just because there's a complaint made, but to rather hear those cases out in a thorough manner. And that's part of what this bill is also intending to do. So we definitely hear you, and we'll keep our keep moving forward with making sure that complaints are thoroughly investigated and not everyone's labeled a bad guy without their for lack of a better term their day in court. So
well, this has been a consistent issue for the 30 plus years that I've been involved. That every meeting that I've been to has been about getting rid of the bad guys, and we get rid of all the bad guys. There's nobody left, and something significant needs to be done to change that language. Item 2, I brought up in the previous meeting, after you decided you didn't want to hear from the public anymore, that we had previously had an ombudsman, somebody that could listen to both sides of the story, both from the Bureau of Automotive Repair's point of view and from the automotive service and or customer's point of view. That is something that used to be a part of the system. You decided you didn't want it anymore, so you threw it in the street. And so the question is, as it was brought up at the previous meeting, what's the possibility of having an ombudsman again?
Hi, Charlie. This is Danielle again. I was not actually a party to the prior meeting, so I don't want to speak out of turn here. But From a legislative standpoint and from writing the language of a bill that we'll be looking at next year, definitely take your comments, wholeheartedly. So, Pat, I don't know if you want to address, the prior issue, or if, Charlie, this is, a conversation that can be continued.
Some time ago, I had actually established an ombudsman program because there were concerns at the time about issues going on in the field that needed to be addressed from the industry standpoint, and potentially fear of retaliation. So I had appointed someone outside of the Bureau of Automotive Repair who actually had been in field office or field had field experience and knew our issues, but had moved on to another position within the Department of Consumer Affairs. And so that ombudsman program that I had established under prior administration, that was eliminated subsequently by both a successor of mine and now a predecessor of mine, since I've been on both ends of that appointment process.
So Pat, you're indicating that the ombudsman was created and it was deleted, and there was never any public comments on that or any ability to negotiate on that, and it was just arbitrarily somebody somewhere decided we didn't want to do this, and because Mr. DeRay, what you had created there was extremely effective and very, very effective at solving problems. And so I would like some further dig into that pile to get a more comprehensive answer to the question.
Certainly welcome the opportunity to do that again. Thank you for the comments. I feel like I'm not exactly sure why the former chief decided to end the program, but just as I had the authority to establish it, that individual felt it was unnecessary and actually wanted to be the ombudsman themselves. I kind of feel the same way, that I have a really good relationship with the industry, and I feel like they know me, that I would not tolerate retaliation, that I feel like people, and as you do yourself, you call me quite frequently and we have very good conversations. I feel like I serve as the ombudsman of the Bureau, as the chief of the Bureau, but I realize that maybe others don't feel that way and maybe feel uncomfortable approaching me in my position. And I'm totally okay.
It's not totally so much about you, Mr. DeRay. It's about a possibility of improving the performance of the industry and the regulatory agency. Is there an opportunity here that could better serve by considering, even on a temporary basis to see how it works, putting an ombudsman? Because in my perception, that previous ombudsman did a stellar job, and he was a part of that until such time as the chairman of the IM Review Committee, who was commenting to the chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair, was called into question his authority to tell the chief of the Bureau of Automotive Repair what to do. And a whole lot of people have decided that they were out of there, and things changed pretty radically after that.
All right. Thank you for your comment. I'll certainly take it under advisement.
I thank you very much, Pat.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. This is the moderator. Charlie has been muted again.
Okay, thank you. I would like to also say that my comment with respect to, you could find a violation in almost any automotive repair transaction, as Dave and others have recognized in this meeting as well. The point of that is that isn't necessarily a bad actor. That's someone who made a mistake. Unless there's at some point there's proven to be a pattern of abuse in some certain transaction, but the documentation process. But by and large, I would say those are simple mistakes. We use those as educational opportunities with the automotive repair industry. We sit down and say, hey, this particular transaction, you failed to do this. And this is where it says in the Automotive Repair Act that you need to document the customer's authorization through let's say increasing the original estimate, and you do it by telephone. You have to document on that original estimate the phone number that you called and got a hold of that individual. Maybe they failed to do so. And so we would have a conversation with them, an educational opportunity, not necessarily looking to ding the shop and put them out of business over a simple transaction error of that nature. And certainly probably doesn't even rise to the level of a citation. That's where I say the slippery slope of citations. Use that as an opportunity to educate the industry. All right. I don't know if there's any other hands raised. I was going to move back to you, Danielle, to cover your. Oh, Dave, you have your hand raised. Dave Kusa.
Thanks, Pat. I just wanted to let Charlie know he can rest assured that if we do get rid of all the bad players, at least Nikki and I will still be around. So we'll have a Northern California, Southern California shop that he can take his car to.
Very good. All right, Danielle, you want to now move to your third bullet on that slide? We can close the public comment period on the first 2 points of the legislation. Miss Moderator, Sarah, thank you. And let's move, Nikki. Oh, well, Nikki has her hand up. Nikki, did you have a comment before we moved into the Trusted Dealership Certification Program portion of the legislation?
I do. I have one concern, and that is if you have an ALJ in each bar field office, would that tend to push more issues or complaints to the ALJ rather than having them stay as an office conference type of disciplinary action? I mean, how would you differentiate between, okay, this isn't that big of a deal, to, oh, the office doesn't want to deal with it because we have too many cases, we'll just shove it up to the ALJ and they can deal with it? How's that going to start being differentiated?
From a legislative, standpoint, that's definitely not the goal. We would, and part of the work that needs to be done on this bill is to itemize and specify which cases, at which level would then move forward to be heard by the ALJ. So that's something that we would need to identify statutorily to find out where and what would deem a case, what would make it appropriate to move it to the ALJ. We wouldn't want it to just be, kind of winging it, but you definitely would want some standards wrapped around that. So very open to suggestions and some more conversation on that.
That would be a fear.
I think that's an excellent question, and thank you for the comment back or response back, Danielle, because anything potentially could get to an ALJ, even a citation that a licensee wants to appeal all the way to through an administrative hearing. They have that right. So you might want to put some parameters on the kinds of actions that would be relegated to these ALJs. And likewise, for the first bullet point, the legal counsel in charge of enforcing the Automotive Repair Act. I don't know if you want to chew up those resources for some of our more, I don't want to say mundane, but the ones that don't rise to the level of a disciplinary action to revoke the license.
No, that's very fair points, and we've had that discussion internally too. So thank you, Nikki, for bringing that up. And let's, I'll put this more as a priority in our discussions moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good point. All right, Danielle, let's move to the third item of the legislation regarding the Trusted Dealer Certification Program.
The less popular part of my presentation. So understood Johan's point, it needs a ton of work. So there's, the idea is consumer protection, which, everyone wants, the good actors want, wants, bar wants, bag members. and the public. What we need to do here is, and again, referring back to Johan, is every shop is different. There's, one shop can see 100 customers a day, another shop can see 2 customers a day. One person complains at a 2-person shop, and suddenly they have a 50% complaint rate. So, understanding that there's some big time work that needs to be done here, and this is where I want to lean back on you all and say, what is it that's feasible? This was, a brainchild that came out of, a discussion that my boss was having with some members of the public, and they said, how do we know who's good? How do we know who's bad? And could we just do sort of, like the Food and Drug Administration does to, restaurants, and give them an A, B, C, D grading scale? And we understand that that's not something that's feasible or fair, depending on what your shop is actually, the volume and what's going on there. Someone can just be mad and they make a complaint, and would that affect your grade, for lack of a better term? So looking at, the smog, what goes on with smogs and trusted dealer certification programs there, that was sort of our baseline. But I'll be the first to admit, from a legislative perspective, is we need help from industry to find out what is actually feasible and what would work. The thought of possibly doing a study bill, meaning we would possibly select a few shops or some areas, a county, a district, and find out what it would look like from an administrative perspective first, from BAR, and then as far as what the outcome of that would be. And so that might give us a better idea of the feasibility of this. But like I said, I want to open it up. I want the discussions to continue, and knowing that this isn't, favorable by industry, and we understand that. So just want to, it doesn't all have to be done today, but definitely in the weeks and months to come, want to get your take on what this might look like. So if we want to open it up, or hands raised.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle. Questions, comments from the Bar Advisory Group? I see Dave Kusa's hand up first with the Automotive Service Councils of California.
Thanks, Pat. So, Danielle, I didn't go back and read the proposed part of this legislation, but my recollection was that if to be part of the either the certification program, that one of the requirements would be more frequent, perhaps, inspections from BAR. Is that still on there?
It is still in the language. We never amended it out.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is still in there currently.
So the concern I have is, while Pat and previous chiefs have done a great job, as evidenced by our committee of making the communication between industry and the regulatory authority much more open and much more friendly. There's still a prevailing attitude of why would I do this if I'm just going to get the fox in the hen house? So what incentive would a shop have for doing this? Because quite frankly, which is I think a good thing, almost all consumers don't know what the Bureau of Auto Repair is because they've never needed the services of the Bureau of Auto Repair. So having another certification hanging on my wall doesn't necessarily help me with the consumer point of view, but could certainly lead to some distress amongst some shop owners of again, the fox in the hen house attitude. So I'm not sure where the incentive would be for me to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. An excellent point. I know that we've talked about this before too. So you don't, if everything's going right, why would you, like you said, fox and hen house sort of situation. So definitely noted, and that's why taking both sides of this. And is it ultimately something? And I know that there is a presentation that is coming subsequent to my presentation that could be something that would address our concerns with consumer protection. So that's definitely open, and Dave, your point is absolutely noted. So the language in this bill is, this bill is as good as dead. So we'll be coming up with a fresh new bill next year. So that's why we want to start the conversations now. And but definitely those are noted and understood.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Danielle, for the response. Jack Maladona with the California Auto Body Association.
Hi, Danielle, thanks. I wanted to just, and I know we've talked about it, but just for some people in the audience, there was a program back in the 80s. It was called the Better Automotive Repair Program. That was a pilot program in the Sacramento area, and I think it was 6 counties, very similar to this, to the Trusted Dealer Certification Program. And there was a summary done on it. It actually sunsetted, and it was a failure. Public awareness efforts were not effective in that study, or at least in that program. There was low industry participation. The project wasn't even self-funding. So I know I forwarded that to you before. I just wanted to let you know that didn't work. I think when you started off, you said, "Hey, maybe we should end up looking to study this." I do think that having the industry involved in talking about standards, because you mentioned ABC, and having the industry consumers know. Which shops are good, which shops are bad. One of the problems we've had in the industry, in this industry, is that we don't have a lot of standards like they do in the restaurant industry, because we always get compared. This industry gets compared to the restaurant industry all the time, but in the restaurant industry, you do have certain standards. So when the health inspector comes in, they can measure the temperature of the water, right? And I mean, and it's objective. Or they can measure the temperature of the refrigerator. This industry, we don't have a lot of those type standards. So maybe, getting the industry together to talk about that. Maybe, the bill directing, the BER to do a study, including the stakeholders, consumer groups, the automotive repair industry, to sit down and talk about these things. A lot of these things are better, when you can sit down with the industry rather than having legislation done and trying to create these programs. I think it's better starting at the ground where the industry can have that input and that time to discuss these things. So maybe maybe considering the study is probably something to consider. So thank you very much. I know you put in a lot of work on this, and I know we look forward to continuing to work with you and the assembly member next year on this legislation. So thanks for all your efforts, Danielle.
Well, thank you. You're stuck with me. So no, I appreciate you all. And we'll definitely take everything into consideration. And we do agree that this may not be a piece for to be statutorily defined, but yet something to look at as a whole. So that point is noted, and we agree.
Thank you, Jack, for your comments. Johan Gallo with California Automotive Business Coalition.
Thank you, Pat. Just real quick, I did spend 2 years with District Attorney Rocky Delgadillo and Jackie Lacey and the staff in Los Angeles in trying to come up with a similar type program where they would use like a restaurant grading system. And after over 2 years of working on it, it was finally deemed impossible. And so I believe we shared some of that information with Assemblymember Lowe's staff. Again, we look forward to working with you next year and see what we can come up with a bill that works.
Perfect. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it.
All right, let's see. Jeffrey Cox with the Automotive Maintenance and Repair Association Motorist Assurance Program.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I just want to, offer our expertise. We've got thousands of standards for recommending, parts, labor, service to consumers, and so if we can help in any way, I'd love to be able to participate.
We love help. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Other BAG members? You can open it up for public comment again.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the request of the Bureau Chief, I will open up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with the question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We currently have instructions up on the slide for your reference right now. And I will pause a moment to allow the members of the public to access that Q&A feature.
It looks like Charlie Peters is still unable to use that feature. He has his hand raised up as an attendee. I don't want to miss his opportunity to provide a public comment.
All right, Charlie Peters, I will be unmuting your microphone now.
Why, hello again. Mr. DeRay, I have in front of me a document from March 8th, 2014, Bar Sunset Review, which rated Mr. Pat DeRay as right next to God. I don't know if he was above Jesus Christ or just below, but it indicated that there was an issue with an organization that the president was involved with yesterday, which is UPS, United Parcel Service. And that in the document dated March the 3rd, 2014, to the Joint Legislative Bar Sunset Review, I lied in that document by saying that the smog check performance went from 50% fail, 5%, 10% pass, 10% pass to 90% pass in a year's period of time. Well, I told a fib. It was not true. It went from 5% pass rate to 95% pass rate in 6 months. First of all, I didn't think there was any possibility that anybody in the world could believe that Pat was really that effective. So I lied and cut it way back to create some possibility for reality. 4 years later, the standard review of the Bureau of Automotive Repair Joint Legislative Review came up again, and I used exactly the same document. And I added to that at that time a comment on the backside with very large font to stop smog check, because it's taking the public's money and we're doing nothing but abusing the customers and taking away their cars. I went out, and at that time, I really didn't know what had really happened, because what had really happened was that a significant Bureau of Automotive Repair employee had come online with me doing smog checks for UPS, and anything that was a question, we would dig until we got an answer that was agreeable to the Bureau of Automotive Repair and myself, and we would test the cars and repair the cars according to the best possible compliance with the rules and regulations of the California Bureau of Automotive Repair. At the time that it was completed and I provided this information to the legislature, I didn't know why this huge impact had taken place. But the reason that it took place was there was an issue with inappropriate information being evaluated by UPS as to how to do their job, because UPS was making huge changes in those vehicles, supported financially and in many ways by the federal and state government. So the people doing the job and the people running the job, the company and the union, had no idea what they were doing. But once the inspections and repairs were consistent, and going back and not telling anybody what to do or how to change anything, the performance of smog checks at the one of the president's favorite corporations, and he's a Republican, and I think I know somebody in this audience that may be a Republican, but that's another subject. That they went from 95% fail to 95% pass because they were provided the opportunity to know the answers to how to do the job right, not having somebody tell them, but just having the opportunity to do it right. And that kind of performance change is astronomical and more money than God even has. I mean, we could balance the budget, we could have a party every week by everybody in the state government for the next century, just from the money that could generate. So there's a little comment to, if we don't make people the management process here and create some sanity and some ethics in this system, we're never going to improve anything. We're just going to go to a self-driving autonomous car and get rid of everybody in this room.
Thank you, Charlie, for the comments.
No, rather than saying thank you for the comments, what are we going to do about considering the possibility? We had an agreement to do a pilot study in '93. We still are waiting for some opportunity to try this and see if it actually works.
Well, there's couple of proposals and a couple of ideas that are going to be shared with all of you in some of the upcoming proposals or presentations, excuse me. So I hope that addresses some of the comments or questions you have.
This is the moderator. Patrick, would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, you may. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and close the Q&A feature.
Any other comments relative to the Trusted Dealer Certification Program proposal that's contained in the legislation AB 2454? All right. I think we have closed the book on that discussion item. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us today, as is kind of a unique opportunity for all of us. We've never had someone from the legislature come and address us about a pending bill, and well, in this case, a bill that does not look like it's moving forward, but there's still a proposal out there looming that potentially could be introduced next year, and we really appreciate your being here with us to help us to get involved. And because there weren't some of the hearings on the legislation couldn't take place this year, I think there was a missed opportunity for this group and others to get involved and to say their piece and give you some feedback and maybe some direction on potentially where you and your boss like to take this legislation. So thank you so much for giving all of us an opportunity and this advisory group an opportunity to comment on the current proposal and give you some things to think about as you look at possibly reintroducing it next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for your comments. I look forward to many more conversations and communications. Don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. And then I look forward to the next open dialogue. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle. I hope you can stick around, obviously, for at least the next presentation that we'll move to. We'll close that agenda item and move to agenda item number 5, the Auto Shop Locator demonstration. When we first saw the bill introduced, and even before that, knowing that there was some media and other interest to identify, for lack of a better term, a bad actor in the industry, but also I think the ability to identify shops. How do you know there's a shop that does transmission work in your neighborhood or works on motorcycles? We felt that was missing from a consumer's ability to get the repairs done on their vehicle. And we felt like we could be a facilitator for that communication, or at least that education of the consumer's repair experience. So we have been working on for the better part of this year, and maybe even conceptually talking about it last year, a prototype that we've built. I think we could have unveiled it and rolled it out without much unveiling. In fact, earlier this year, we were actually looking to do so in time for our April advisory group meeting that was canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we were just not ready to have a meeting at that time. But now since we are having this meeting, we are ready to roll this out. But we wanted to share with all of you this new prototype that we've built called the Auto Shop Locator. And here to give a brief presentation, but also more a demonstration of that feature, is Clay Leak from our executive office. Clay, you still there? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for waiting so patiently to get to your 3 presentations. Well, 2. You've got 3. Yeah, you have 3 in a row. But this is the one that I would love to have Danielle take a look at, as well as all of our advisory group members. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here. Clay Leak with the Bar Executive Office. I obviously a lot of background kind of and lead up to this point, but I'm going to drag us through a little bit more just to make sure we're kind of on par and understand kind of how we got here and why this prototype was developed. One of the things I'm frequently doing is looking back at our strategic plan and looking at our mission statement and looking at our vision statement and really questioning decisions that we make as an organization and I make individually and asking myself if those decisions align with our mission and our vision. Pat kind of rushed through these today, but I certainly kind of wanted to revisit them as well and make sure that the context of this prototype is kind of rooted in our mission and our vision and what we're here to do. So obviously the mission is to serve Californians through effective regulation of the automotive repair and smog check industry. And our vision is to educate and empower consumers by promoting a competitive automotive repair marketplace and a model vehicle emissions reduction program. Educate and empower consumers is a really powerful statement to me. And I'll bring us back to this as we go through the demo. Continuing back kind of to our strategic plan, our first, I apologize. It's like we just jumped slides. Kind of drilling down into our strategic goals, we have some specific goal areas. And our first goal area is around communication. Bar communication efforts will inform, educate, and empower. So the fact that this is our first strategic goal area, I think is relevant and is useful for the context of this conversation as well.
This is the moderator. Sorry to interrupt, Clay, but let me pass over presenter status to you so you can click through the slides for everyone.
Oh, sure. That'd be great. I was clicking on the thumbnails thinking I had the power to do so, and maybe I didn't.
You're able to click them through yourself, but everyone else is only seeing what my co-moderator had up. So I passed over the presenter status to you. So now you should be able to guide those.
And will that also allow me to share my desktop as I get into the demo?
Yes, like I had shown you on Tuesday, you should be able to do it the same way.
Perfect, thank you. So I think another relevant piece of the background is the changing landscape. Historically, some of you are familiar with tools that consumers have been able to use to look up information on bar licensees. Many years ago, it was the DCA web license lookup, where you could go to find disciplinary information, history on a particular station. A few years ago, the web license lookup, or the WLL, was replaced with the DCA search page. And I will actually do a little bit of a demonstration on that page in a few minutes. I think another piece of the puzzle is really the evolving expectations of consumers and motorists and interactions with government. Right? Companies like Amazon and Redfin have really revolutionized the way that we interact with technology and the way we obtain services through the internet. Mobile-friendly design has become incredibly important as we work to engage the vast majority of consumers whose primary compute device is a phone, is a mobile device. It's not a computer. And that transition has been occurring for some time. So as we work to provide services, this is something that's always in the back of my mind, is how do we How do we touch the most? How do we interact with consumers effectively? How do we interact with the broadest section of consumers that we can? Another piece of this puzzle is the overall DCA business modernization. Many of you are familiar with the Breeze project, which allowed about half the DCA boards and bureaus to move to a more mature platform. We've been giving presentations on what we call ELM, or our Enforcement and Licensing Modernization Project. Many other boards and bureaus, in fact, every board and bureau that didn't get onto the Breeze platform is in the process of modernizing their business. And there's a lot of work going on the DCA side to help support that. One of the recent accomplishments of DCA is to make data that's currently in CAS, the Consumer Assistance System, which is a mainframe that supports many of our licensing and enforcement functions, available through a programmatic interface. That really gave us an opportunity to present the data in a much different way. And it really was something we thought a lot about, and thought a lot about how we could leverage that opportunity to further align with our mission and our vision and our strategic goals. So that said, I think I am going to jump into the demo. I am going to do my best here. I apologize in advance. Trying to drive the PowerPoint and talk, I feel a little bit like I'm trying to play a guitar and sing at the same time, and I'm not really good at either of those things. So, so please bear with me, and I apologize in advance. I'm going to share my screen. Moderator, could you confirm that my a Chrome window is visible?
Hi, this is the co-moderator. Currently, I'm only seeing the slides.
Okay, hold on one second. How about now?
There we go.
Yes, now, yep, now we can see it. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you for the help. So currently, if a consumer is interested in finding information about a station, there are a couple of ways that they can do that. One is through the Bureau of Automotive Repairs website, which is bar.ca.gov. From our website, they can click License Search. This will redirect a consumer to the DCA search page. One advantage of coming through the BAR's website is that we pre-populate these menu items with Bureau of Automotive Repair as the board or bureau. And we also provide the consumer some additional filtering capabilities. The other way to get to the DCA search page is through the Department of Consumer Affairs website. If you click on the Consumer tab, it allows you to drill into the DCA license search. So this search page, assuming we access it from the DCA website, allows us to select Bureau of Automotive Repair. I can subsequently drill in, and I will use a station that is no longer in business as an example. So I went ahead and entered their license number for the sake of this search, but you could also enter the business name or the first name or last name of an individual associated with this business. This would allow us to see the details of this particular licensee. If there was disciplinary information about this particular licensee available or documents available, this gavel would be displayed in the event that there is disciplinary action. And this little blue documents icon would appear in the event that there are documents to review. To get into the details, you click the More Details tab. And now we can actually see the specific actions that were taken, and we can see the specific documentation that is available for this particular licensee. So, historically, this is really the best way we could get this information to consumers. But again, because this data is now available to us programmatically, we saw a real opportunity to help inform consumers, to help educate consumers, and ultimately to help empower consumers to make good decisions about where they take their vehicle for repair. So coming back to the Bureau of Automotive Repair's website, we currently have a function called Find a Station that's available through our website. So this page is very heavily trafficked. and gives consumers the ability to find Bureau of Automotive Repair licensees, searching by station name, searching by county, searching by city name, postal code, searching by field office area. They can refine that search by searching for a star station, for example. So let's go ahead and do a search. So if we were looking for a station that had the word Smog in it, it's going to pop up a list of all the stations. One feature of this list is that if you did want to see the disciplinary history for this particular station, you could click this license number and it would take you to the DCA search page that I displayed earlier. And it would take you directly to the information relative to this specific station. So this would be one kind of way currently that you could shortcut yourself to the specific disciplinary history for this licensee. But all that said, I think this is useful and this is kind of what we've had to date, but I think it's not highly user-friendly for somebody on a mobile device. And to be honest, I felt like we could do better. So,
quick question. Yeah. That's the page that you're on now. Is that the station search? What is it? Find a station search. Is that just for smog check stations, or is that all automotive repair facilities?
All automotive repair.
Okay. Because it looks heavy on the smog emphasis, but
well, I think that's because I put Smog.
Okay.
As the station name beginning.
I wanted to confirm. Okay.
So our proposal is that basically we replace this page with a new page that's going to provide consumers a much more user-friendly way to access this information and to find the right service in the most efficient way possible. So upon clicking Find a Station, the user will be taken to the Auto Shop Locator page. This page is configured to use location services. So if you're on a mobile device, it will show you the 50 stations that are closest to your existing location. Obviously, if you're not using location services, then your phone's not capable of doing that. But for the vast majority of time, I know I leverage location services for apps like Redfin and other applications. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and enter a specific zip. That's interesting. Excuse me 1 second, having some technical difficulties. Okay. So once you've gone to the home page, there's some very user-friendly filtering capabilities that allows a consumer to find a station that will perform a smog check inspection, or will allow a consumer to find a station that does smog check repair. Looking for a star station, not a problem. You can see it's very responsive, it's very quick, it's very user-friendly. Looking for a referee, not a problem. This search is obviously a little bit different than some of the others because of the huge geographic spread between some of the referees, but still functions. Looking for a brake adjustment or a lamp adjustment station, not a problem. Very quickly filter all those out. So this is a feature that isn't perfect, but I still think there's some value for consumers. When a applicant applies for an ARD, a license under BAR, they provide a primary and secondary business type. That information could be useful to a consumer if, for example, a consumer is looking for a transmission service. Right? Very quickly, I can identify for this consumer all the stations that specialize, that have identified themselves as transmission specialists. Unfortunately, CAS restricts every ARD to only 2 business types. So only 2 business types can be selected. As part of our business modernization, I would love to adjust that so that a station could select as many of these as they want to, and customize the selection of these values through their portal, which they would log into. And if they added an engine specialist, they could check engine, and that would help point the consumer to the right spot. Another thing I'd like to point out is these menus are very flexible and very adjustable. So if in the future we wanted to help consumers find bar services, for example, cap repair, we could have another menu here for cap repair that would very quickly display all the stations that are actively engaged and wanting to provide a cap repair service. So very flexible. The next piece I'd like to demonstrate is our attempt at really making some of the information that's kind of buried down within the DCA search page available to consumers in a more mobile-friendly format and in a more visual format. So this particular station is made up. It is not a real station. That is not a real license number. Invisible Auto. This is what a consumer would see if a station has had an accusation filed against them. No need to drill down into DCA search and look at documents. A visual indication that this station is on probation, or excuse me, has had an accusation filed against them. And by clicking on this link, it would take the consumer directly to the DCA search page where they could further investigate that accusation. So again, going back to DCA search, this is what the consumer would see in the event they click on that link. They would see that a accusation has been filed, and they could read the accusation if they were interested in finding that information. This is what a station would look like to a consumer that's on probation. And similarly, by clicking on this link, the consumer would be taken directly to the DCA search page where they could see that all the documents related to that probationary status. I think that covers the majority of what I wanted to show. Pat, was there anything else kind of relevant that you wanted to see?
I think you covered it. Thank you. There is just, I think there is, some have asked, well, if something like this were to go live, and we do plan to go live with it, but want us certainly to get everyone's kind of feedback on it. If someone wanted to change currently before the business modernization effort allowed us to expand upon the primary and secondary business types, if someone wants to change that, we do have a form on our website. Clay's actually got it handy. So anyone can change their primary and secondary business type if they don't like what they initially put on their application for licensure or registration. So if you're no longer specializing in transmission repairs, you can certainly update your business function, the characteristics of your auto repair shop in your spec.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. There is absolutely a form. Sorry, I'm really struggling because there's some. Here's the form that a licensee would fill out if they wanted to update their primary business types. This would just be submitted to our licensing department. And as you see, they can update their primary and secondary business type very quickly.
And maybe that's a feature that could be built into the page or the auto shop locator.
You know, I would probably see that more as part of our business modernization effort, probably more part of Elm. But yeah, that's certainly something that is on my list to find a way to address. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's open it up for questions from the Bar Advisory Group, or Danielle, or anyone else. Let's see. I see Bud Rice with the California Automotive Business Coalition.
Hi, good morning. And yeah, Clay, I enjoyed watching your presentation, and I wanted to take a little time to think about it a little bit, but I didn't want to lose an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about it. It's kind of like Zillow in a way, where I want to buy a 3-bedroom house in Sacramento, and I go on Zillow and I look around for that. I mean, that's kind of what you're doing here. And you're only like a step away from having coupons and setting an appointment. I mean, with the shop. I mean, you're that close to offering that kind of thing. And I just don't know if that's BAR's place. It just like the real estate agency probably doesn't run Zillow. I don't know that this is an appropriate place for that. And I understand what we're trying to do here. It just, I just want to think about it a little bit, but those thoughts kind of crossed my mind a little bit as well. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate the comment. And I think it's an interesting question. And I think that's one of the reasons I really felt like I wanted to kind of walk through our mission and our vision and really make sure that kind of served as a baseline for this conversation.
Danielle.
Hi again.
Sorry,
yeah.
hand raised.
Yeah, Clay, thank you for a great presentation. Understanding, to Bud's point that, where does all this lie, and knowing that this is in the beta stages, this is definitely something that I think would potentially address our concerns with consumer protection and that openness to the public. So, in regards to the trusted dealer certificate, I think this is something that could potentially solve that issue for us. And, like we've talked about, it's in the beginning stages, but I'm definitely happy to work with you guys on this. So I think the vision of it is in line with what we're thinking as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great to hear.
Thank you, Danielle. Other comments from the BAR advisory group? Do not see, let's see, Ruben Parra. California Automotive Teachers.
This is the moderator. Looks like Ruben dropped off the call, so let me go ahead and promote him back up to a panelist. All right, Ruben, you are back up to a panelist.
Hello, Ruben. Did you have a comment or question?
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, Ruben? Must be having some technical difficulty on his end. We'll try and get him back on as soon as possible. In the meantime, is there anybody else? Jack Maladonoff, I think, has his hand raised. Yes, Automotive, California Automotive Association.
Hello?
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
Jack, and then Ruben will turn to. Sorry, Ruben, can you hear us?
Hey, Pat.
Yep, we'll go with Jack. We lost you for a minute, so we moved on, and we'll get back to you right away. Jack Maladonoff.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think my call dropped for a second.
Yeah, California Auto Body Association,
sure,
Jack Maladonoff. And then we'll get to you, Ruben. Go ahead, Jack.
Thanks, Clay, for the presentation. And I'm glad you addressed that issue with the primary business type and secondary business type, because I know a lot of shops, when you originally signed up, or at least obtained your registration, you may not have put too much emphasis on those categories, because the categories, I don't know how many there are, maybe like 30 categories, and a lot of shops probably have forgotten what they checked. Most of the time, like a new car dealer would have checked the box of dealing with new car sales and so forth, and not necessarily focused on repair. Or some shops may have just checked general repair, and they may specialize in certain things. So I'm glad that you're exploring how to update. So when this thing does go live, when you're planning on going in that direction, it would be good and helpful. My comment is to let shops know that they'll be popping up based on what they had signed up for maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? So I think that would be something good, that when you're planning on going live, to at least remind shops to double check to make sure they're comfortable with whatever they checked, because they probably don't even remember. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. That piece, that particular filter was something we debated a lot about as to whether to include it or not. And I know not all stations have actively maintained that data. To your point, where we really felt there was value, we actually have an individual at bar that has a motorcycle, and he was looking for some motorcycle repair services, and he had a really difficult time finding somebody to work on his motorcycle. Well, we used the data, and he was very quickly able to find 5 stations within 10-mile radius that specialized in motorcycle repair. So while it's not perfect, I agree. There is some value, and I think we have a lot of opportunity to improve and grow that value over time as we kind of mature and modernize some of the other pieces of the overall solution and enterprise. So thank you.
Can someone remind me too, is there a renewal form for auto repair dealers for the registration? And does it have, if there is, does it have that information?
Yes, Pat. That was to be my comment. Yes, you can, when you renew your license, you can always change that.
Okay, good. I didn't want it to be something that someone felt like they had to wait. Well, to use the form, the change of business type form, it does come up on the renewal, so that's good. All right, other questions? Dave, you had your hand. Did you have another comment or question? I thought I saw your hand up.
I did. That was it. That'd be the annual renewal. Yeah, sorry. I didn't identify myself. I apologize.
That's all right. No, that's all right. I promised to go to Ruben Parra with California Automotive Teachers next. So, Ruben.
Hi, Pat, and I apologize to the group members for about my call dropping out. I'm actually traveling through the Grand Canyon State as we speak. So, so what my comment was, and what I'd like to say is, first of all, whether this is a job of the Bureau of Automotive Repair or not, that's a whole other topic. But they are here to provide consumer assistance, and so with that, I'd like to comment. Somebody else earlier mentioned about that many, Californians don't know that the Bureau of Automotive Repair exists. What the challenge I think would be is to get the word out to drivers about the website. I mean, it's fine. It looks like it'll work great. I think it's a great idea. The challenge I think is going to be, are they going to use it? Because I know that when somebody comes to me and asks me about, hey, this shop, or ask me another question, and I mention about the website, I have yet to run across anybody except for technicians that know about the website. So I think we should address as to how we're going to get the word out to the consumer about the website being out there. It might require some kind of a consumer awareness program or some other kind of launch to make it successful. And that was my comment on that.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, and I agree. One thing I will point out, one of the things we did kind of prior to diving into this is we put some analytical tools on the existing Find a Station page, and you would actually be shocked at how many thousands of people visit that page every month. So I agree, we do need to get the word out, but there are a lot of consumers hitting that page that currently exists, and I think by publishing the new application, the prototype, I think we really drive adoption because of the mobile friendliness of the page. I think the best thing you can do to increase adoption is make it user friendly and make it easy. So, but thank you. I think that's a great idea. I would love to do some more comprehensive outreach.
Other comments from the advisory group? We can now open it up, moderator, for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator at the direction of the Bureau Chief. I will be opening up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We'll get instructions for that up in just 1 second. There we go. All right, and then I will pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature if they would like to make a public comment.
once again, I see Charlie is using the Bar Advisory Group hand feature, so not the public comment page or feature. So I want to not have him have an opportunity to make a public comment. Charlie, we can unmute you for a public comment. Please, in the interest of time, we are scheduled till 12:30. Normally we schedule ourselves till 1. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it does look like we're going to be running slightly over the 12:30 time on the agenda. Charlie, do you have a brief comment?
Yes, Mr. DeRay, I do have a comment. I'm not getting the massive feedback this time, or getting a little bit, but not too much. I have in front of me a document written to Governor of California in 2015 concerning the issues with Volkswagen. And the first paragraph says, in 1992, a visit to Washington, D.C. Environmental Protection Agency, upper management, EPA, asked for an opinion on smog check test performance. And IM 240 generate desired results. And I went to the federal test procedure as a means of testing the cars, is the means of certifying the cars, which is the most comprehensive test in the world in history at determining whether a car is in compliance. I proceeded to tell him why his IM 240 wouldn't work, why a federal test procedure wouldn't work, because the technician could manipulate the car to read any numbers you wanted and to be at the top of any list he wanted to generate, while the good guy down the street would try to do a legitimate job and give a legitimate estimate. He would get thrown out of business because somebody complained about his toilet paper. I would stay in business because when this customer comes to me, I would give him an estimate for $50 and I would manipulate the car to pass, doing things like adding ethanol, retarding the timing to get it to pass a NOx test. And that would put me at the very top of the list as being the right person to go and see, when in fact I was the biggest crook in the business. I think that if we can incorporate a process to improve performance of everybody in the marketplace, to see that people are actually doing the job and doing it right and given the opportunity to do that, and not only an opportunity to do that, but follow up to make sure they do that, that the behavior and performance of the industry can improve immensely, rather than depending on a website to give somebody a consumer guidance that will do nothing but lead them right to me, the biggest crook in town, that's going to steal all of his money and never get caught because I'm pretty smart and I listen to all you smart people tell us how to do it.
Okay, thank you very much for the comment. All right, Clay, I think we'll close unless I see any other hands or public comments. Hands from the advisory group, members, none. Seeing none, moderator, please feel free to close the comment period for this agenda item.
All right, the Q&A feature is now closed.
All right. Now moving on to the next agenda item. Clay is still on the clock for the Enforcement Licensing Modernization, or ELM project update.
All right, this is the moderator.
Thank
Let
you
me
very
pass
much.
over presenter status to Clay again.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you very much. So a lot's been happening over the last, since we met last, with regard to, oh, I'm sorry. I've got a third presentation and I was jumping to that one. Enforcement Licensing Modernization Project. A lot has been occurring relative to our enforcement licensing modernization effort. A little bit of background before I dive in to kind of what's happened over the last 6 months. Obviously, the BREEZE project had a goal of consolidating all DCA entities into a single licensing and enforcement system. Release 3, which included BAR, was canceled in January of 2015. 18 DCA regulatory entities are currently using BREEZE, and the remaining 16 of us are seeking to modernize our business processes, and obviously that includes BAR. We were given some direction in AB 111 and also some pretty substantial guidance under the DCA Business Modernization Plan if anybody wants to kind of read up on some of the history. As I have been reporting, we've been working towards a modernized solution. We completed our stage one. Let me back up. We completed phase one, which was our business process reengineering exercise that went on for about a year and resulted in some really detailed documentation of our as-is business processes and a really good understanding of what currently is in place. We completed phase two, which was development of our mid-level solution requirements, which was required to begin the project approval lifecycle. We have been working through the project approval lifecycle with the Department of Technology and our partners at DCA. We received approval of our stage one business analysis, and we are very close to completing our stage two alternatives analysis. I guess what's occurring as we were working on our stage two analysis was kind of this really minor thing called the global pandemic. So as you can imagine, in the short term, accommodating telework and kind of, preparing the organization to deal with this new reality ate up a lot of resources that would have been working on this stage two and some of our other projects. So I think we've done our best to kind of keep this project on track. It is an incredibly important project and not something that I wanted to lose focus on, but obviously all that has happened inherently pulls resources away from some of these critical activities. So we are currently in the midst of stage two, and we do have a head start on our stage three. So I just kind of covered this slide in terms of getting approval of our stage one and submitting our stage two. But most importantly, the organization is ready for change. And I continue to have programs, licensing and enforcement folks contact me very regularly looking for updates. The organization is excited about this, and I think for a good reason. So here's our original timeline that we're still marching to. I don't have an updated timeline to publish yet. This pandemic may end up impacting some of these dates, and we are working on an updated schedule and really an updated strategy potentially because of a shifting landscape. So, in summary, modernization is still overdue and it's still desperately needed. We have no intention of taking our foot off the gas. We have no intention of abandoning this project. But that said, the landscape has shifted pretty significantly, right? COVID-19 has really changed the way we do business. It's changed key components of our organizational strategy, like business continuity, disaster recovery. These are all things we have a lot of detailed plans around, and I'll be totally honest, COVID-19 turned a lot of those plans on their heads. So there's also been progress. For those that are familiar with DCA Cohort 1, there's a group of 5 boards and bureaus that have banded together, and they are known as Cohort 1. They are modernizing as a group. They are moving through the project approval lifecycle. They have an approved project, and they are currently building a new solution on a new platform. And that project is moving forward, and they anticipate having what we call an MVP, or a minimally viable release, a minimally viable product, available in August or September. Additionally, many are aware of the budget letter 20-11 issued on 4/30 that really limits our ability to spend money, except on things that meet very specific criteria. So we're having to make sure that all of our plans for this project fall within that budget letter, and we're on solid ground and following guidance provided by the governor and the Department of Finance. And also this increased focus on functionality that supports telework and social distancing. When we started our project a year ago, these weren't focuses, and that focus has shifted. So those are pieces and parts that we want to accommodate and make sure we're thinking of. And finally, an increased focus on reducing cost. Obviously, the budget is in a really rough state, very different than it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So cost is something we're extra focused on, and also the minimization of risk for obvious reasons. Not that these weren't important elements before, but these have become even more important in today's landscape. So we have taken a little bit of a step back, and we're really looking at our plans and making sure that we have alignment with with direction provided by the governor, direction provided by agency, and direction provided by the department. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you, Clay. Any comments or questions from the Bar Advisory Group? I do not see any comments. Moderator, we can open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator. I will open up the Q&A feature now. All right, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. Currently have instructions up on this slide right now. And I'll pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature. All right, this is the moderator again. It looks like at this time there are no individuals who have indicated they would like to make public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, you may. Thank you, moderator.
Q&A feature is now closed.
All right, Clay, I think we can close this agenda item.
Great.
And move on to your third and final item on the California Vehicle Inspection System, or CalVIS, the enhancements update. We've agreed to do this twice a year at our advisory group meetings. I think we were planning to do it in April, and obviously we missed that opportunity with the cancellation of that meeting. So happy to have you doing this in July. So go ahead with agenda item number 7.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me pass over presenter status to Clay again. All right, Clay, you have presenter status.
Great. Thank you very much. Clay Leak with the Bar Executive Office. Going for 3 in a row. I think this is a new record for me, so really appreciating the opportunity, Pat. Thanks so much. Okay, so a lot's been happening on the California Vehicle Inspection System as well over the last 6 months. As many are aware, last November, on November 1st, 2019, Encore Consulting took over maintenance and operations of the California Vehicle Inspection System. At that time, the cost per test was reduced from $1.08 to 0.7036 cents. I'm really proud to report that based on an estimated number of tests through today, that's resulted in a savings of about $2.8 million to the industry. And we still anticipate a savings of around $46 million over the 10-year contract period. Encore, obviously right off the bat, established an enrollment billing and help desk portal, secure electronic delivery of invoicing and reporting, and secure self-service of banking information for all transaction fees and purchase of inspection certificates, which was previously a primarily paper process. They did an exceptional job getting stations enrolled. Over 90% of target stations were enrolled with the new vendor Encore prior to 11/1/19. Exceptional geographic coverage, and from everything BAR could determine, there was no disruption of service to consumers and stations. Approximately 6,687, which is 94% of stations, did enroll on ACH. Another big positive, moving to a more digital process. Recent accomplishments, and you know, it's hard. The original slide deck that I was presented was almost 30 pages. So I really tried to boil this down to some of the more kind of core functionality and critical pieces I think this group will be interested in. But that said, this isn't representative of all the work that's happened. There's a lot more work that's just way too granular to kind of get into with this audience. But I did want to really recognize a lot of the folks doing that work and the level of quality and transparency that BAR's had to that work. So recent accomplishments from a high level: created a comprehensive database roadmap capturing all currently planned database enhancements. This was a real area of need on the database side, and something the new Encore has really taken on and embraced and doing a great job with some long-term strategic planning and enhancing our capabilities from a database perspective. We've created a comprehensive hardware-software roadmap. This was really needed to make sure that we stay on top of system refresh, make sure components stay under support. We've established a security assessment program and roadmap. Again, in today's world, security can't be understated, something that has to be considered and prioritized. And that's a huge focus for us and something we will continue to prioritize. On the BAR OIS side, we've had 2 releases move to production successfully, 19.4 and 20.1, and I'll get into the details of those in a little bit. On the BAR 97 side, also some pretty big milestones. Offline testing was disabled on 4/1 of 20. This is something that we've been working towards for a long time. It's provided some real benefits to the program. So this was a big milestone, something that took a lot of work to get to. We also enforced mandatory alignment with the BAR 97 2017 specification. Analyzers without this update were locked out on 4/1 of 20. One of the big features of this enhancement was that the LETFET data was integrated with inspection data, so no more dedicated phone line is required for the upload of that data to BAR. This solves a number of problems for us, including a chain of custody issue we've always had with that data, and a few other enhancements like removing diesel fuel type, allowing entry for no dynes, ability to recall and view pre-test results, and some other suggestions we've gotten from stakeholders over time. So back to the BAR OIS release 19.4 that I mentioned. Not a lot of huge functionality in this release, but this was Encore's first release to production. So very big in terms of kind of proving out their processes and making sure that the right amount of rigor and testing and the knowledge of the system has been obtained. Also some transition items that were just kind of critical to get into production as part of that transition from the previous vendor to Encore. Definitely some security improvements, some FAQ tutorial registration page enhancements, and some improvements in our certification testing environment are some of the highlights of that release. 20.1 was really the first release where we started pushing some core functionality into the system. This is actually something we've been talking about for quite a while and something I'm really excited about. Many of you involved with Smog Check may have noticed the safety recall data update that is now in place. We have been working for a long time to obtain safety recall data and provide consumers that data as part of a Smog Check in California. So if there are open safety recalls, the consumer walks out with a piece of paper and they are notified, they are informed, they are educated as to what those recalls are, and they are empowered to make some better decisions with regard to those recalls. So as of now, as of the release of this, which was in earlier July or late June, I believe, I apologize, I don't have the date, but this is in place. Open recalls are provided to both the inspector as part of the inspection process and also the consumer on the VIR. These capabilities were made possible through a partnership with Carfax and the Alliance of Automobile Innovation, which represents 99% of light-duty vehicles sold in the United States. We really are excited about this. Having an opportunity to positively influence safety recall rates in California is important. And something, again, we've been working towards for a long time and something I'm really, really proud of. Here is an example of what a tech inspector would see if there happened to be an open safety recall that was found during the inspection. You can see the NHTSA number, the manufacturer campaign, the recall date, the status, and a description of the recall. And then additionally, this is an example of what the VIR would look like that's handed to the consumer. You can see we clearly identify the recalls, and with as much emphasis as we can and as much highlight as we can, we attempt to really draw the consumer to that piece and help notify them. There's some language around what is a recall and what to do about the listed recall. It is worth mentioning the emissions recall process that is in place is still a separate process, and we haven't impacted that process or changed that process at all. It still works just like it always has. And here's an example of an emissions recall VIR. So that gets us through kind of releases to date. Looking forward, we do have another OIS release coming soon, scheduled to be released to beta stations on 7/22 and all stations in early August. This is another change I'm really excited about. Vehicle-specific messaging is something that we've wanted to get in place for quite some time. It gives us the ability to communicate testability issues that we currently document in the OBD test reference document and give those messages directly to inspectors through the BAR OIS and also messaging to consumers on the VIR. So this is really powerful and something we can do down to individual VINs if we have to. Another kind of subgroup is that this capability has also given us the ability to tell consumers that their vehicle has a PZEV, vehicles that have a PZEV warranty and they fail a BAR OIS inspection, we can notify them that they do have a PZEV warranty and that and the benefits and help explain to them the benefits of that warranty and help empower them to go get that repair done for free. So this is something we're really excited to be able to communicate to consumers. A few things I will mention. The test procedure has been modified and us obtaining this data is dependent on the inspector keying it into the BAR OIS correctly. If that data is not keyed into the BAR OIS correctly, we cannot determine whether or not that vehicle has a PZEV warranty. I can't determine whether there's a PZEV warranty through the VIN or the plate or anything other than the emissions test group number, which is on the underhood label, and we rely on the inspector to key that in. So this is the message displayed to the consumer. Down here at the bottom, your vehicle is a PZEV and may have an emissions warranty of 15 years or 150,000 miles. I won't read the whole thing, but I will show a sample VIR of what that looks like if your vehicle has a PZEV and you fail a smog check inspection. Another release coming a little bit later in 2020 is Q3. I know we've had several conversations about integrating Cal ID and CVN into the failure criteria, and that's something we are still working on and hoping to squeeze into this Q3 release. This kind of it really fixes what's a fairly large hole in the program right now and will allow us to identify vehicles that have had their software tampered with. We're also looking to add some dynamic testing, like a 2-speed idle, that we can turn on by station to help collect some additional data for enhanced fraud detection where we suspect fraud is occurring. So longer term on the strategic horizon, some of these were kind of talked about in the regulatory presentation, but biometric authentication and integration of web cameras into the BAR OIS and potentially the BAR 97 is something that we are really interested in pursuing and something we see a lot of value in. As Lucy and Holly touched on, the regulations are being drafted. We will obviously have a public workshop and vet that package with the industry and with consumers. Tentatively, we're looking at a late 21 rollout, but all that's dependent on regulations and feedback and all that. So that's really just a kind of a placeholder for now. We are looking at ways to potentially pull in the implementation date, things like voluntary enrollment. We believe a lot of stations may voluntarily sign up to use this biometric authentication and webcam because of the benefits it provides for stations that are good actors and performing good. We're also really interested in looking at digitizing our brake and lamp inspection. Much like smog check is a digital process, brake and lamp is not. So that's something that I'm still really interested in doing. We've had some initial conversations with the Department of Motor Vehicles and other stakeholders that would need to be engaged for this to happen and for it to be a success. So again, another kind of long-term strategic horizon priority. And finally, the new data acquisition device, or the DAD 2.0, as we've kind of labeled it. Every piece of equipment has a lifespan, and the DAD is nearing the end of its lifespan for a bunch of reasons. The DAD 2.0 is going to put us in a much better position to combat fraud and to address behavior that we're seeing in the industry, enhanced data collection, and also accommodate modifications to the SAE spec and newer vehicles that the existing DAD is just not able to accommodate. And I think that covers it for CalViz.
Thank you very much, Clay. Any questions or comments from the Bar Advisory Group members? I see Bud Rice's hand going up right away. Bud, representing the California Automotive Business Coalition.
I just have two quick comments. Thank you, Pat, and thank you, Clay. So one I'm gonna get on you for a minute. The other one I'm gonna give you a kudos. So the first one is about a week and a half or so ago, there was an issue where there was problems transmitting testing data to the vid and then having it take it. And there ended up being a problem at BAR that was on your end, and then it finally got resolved. My comments are, if that happens, you got to get a blast or something out to us as to that's what's going on. Because we were calling the equipment guys and we were jumping up and down and running down a path trying to get some help, but we were looking to the wrong people. So I don't know if that, because we ended up getting a blast, an ET blast, when you identified that that's what the problem was. And then we got a second one when you thought you had the problem resolved. Meantime, we're trying to handle customers and trying to figure out how to help them along the way. So I'm asking if you got an issue on your side, just let us know as soon as you can, and then we'll work around it. But you got to give us some clues as to what's going on. So that's my first comment. Second one, I want to give you kind of a pat on the back. The thing with the PSEV, before Charlie jumps up in here, he's been on that horse for years, and to see that you guys have, I know you tried to accommodate that with the previous rollouts, and now you've also got the PSEV thing into this one. So I wanted to take a hat off to you and say nice job on that. So those are my two comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud.
With regard to communication, I will mention, so ET Blast is a great tool, but obviously if your bar OIS isn't working, an ET Blast isn't a great way to get in contact with you, right? Because you're not able to get into your bar OIS. So we do post all of our ET Blasts on the website, and that's something I think I'd like to make sure we communicate to stations. So even if your bar OIS is down, you're still able to get to those ET Blasts. But I agree, we need to do a good job about getting those ET Blasts out, and I can definitely take a look at those processes and make sure that they are streamlined as possible. But we do have a fairly rigorous review process and a whole bunch of people that have to approve a communication like that before it goes out. But I do agree that we need to do that as expeditiously as possible. The other resource I'll point out that's always available for you, Bud, is our industry help desk. They will always have the latest information, and they will always pick up the phone during core business hours. But I do appreciate that we need to communicate as effectively as we can, and you definitely have my commitment to improve that where we can.
Thank you very much, Clay, for the response to that. And thank you, Bud, for the recognition of the PSEV effort that we've been working on for a few years now. And glad we were able to bring that into implementation in a much more desirable format. The first attempt obviously didn't get all the way there. It was a good first phase, but now that we're able to capture the information from the inspection as the inspector inputs that information relative to the what is it, Clay, off the Vecchi label? What's the information?
Emissions test group number, yes.
The test group number, yes. As long as that information is correctly inputted into the record, we certainly can capture whether or not that vehicle's a PSEV and give consumers, as Charlie and Bud and others have advocated for, giving them consumers information to go get that vehicle repaired by the dealership at no cost to the consumer. So thank you for the continuing push on us to get that done. Dave Kusa, you have your hand raised with the Automotive Service Councils of California.
Thanks, Pat. There we go. Thanks, Pat. Sorry. So as far as the ET blasts go, maybe an ET blast to let people know. I get them, and my Smog Tech gets them on email as well. So if there is an issue with the iOS being down, that method does exist. And if there are shops and techs that aren't don't have that set up, maybe that's a good reminder.
That's a good point, Dave. We should send an ET blast about the ability to check ET blasts online, as well as calling our help desk in the event that your OIS is down. You won't get ET blasts. So those are the backup measures, at least as we see them right now. Maybe there's some other features that we can explore.
And directly to my email, right? They pop up right in my email. So outside of the iOS system.
Yeah, we do allow individuals to sign up for email notifications as well. So that's another thing we could communicate out, and more folks could certainly take advantage. And if the bar OS was not available, they can also get those ET blasts in your email, just like you do, Dave. So that's another good suggestion. Thank you.
Other bar advisory group members with questions or comments relating to this presentation? I do not see any at this moment. We can open it up for public comment by the moderator.
All right, this is the moderator. I'll be opening up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. We will get instructions up in just a second. All right, and I will pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that Q&A feature. All right, this is the moderator again. Looks like there are no individuals who have indicated they would like to make public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, you may do so, although I see Charlie Peters' hand up again as a potential public comment. I don't know if it's ever come down. Go ahead and allow him to make a public comment if he does have one, and we'll try and ask that he keep it brief so we can get on to our next presenter. Charlie, do you have a comment with respect to Clay's presentation?
You have a question as to whether I would have a comment on this subject matter? Oh, okay. Item 1, the first comment out of the box was that the customer is going to be informed that they need to go to the dealer because they'll get the repair for free. I think that is a fraudulent process because I think everybody is entitled to fix the car, charge the customer for fixing the car. So telling the customer that he has to go to the dealer so he can get frauded out of getting the car fixed at all, which has been going on for many decades, I think is inappropriate to consider.
I don't know if the message says that. Does it? I have to pull up the message again, Clay.
That's what Mr. Clay said, sir.
I think we were assuming that that's where the consumer might want to take it, so they wouldn't have to.
And I'm sorry, you've got a whole lot more technicians that are marketplace people that can make money off of fixing these cars, that you are telling them that they have to go to the dealer and get it fixed for free, which is frauding them out of their money.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I don't think we specifically state they have to go to the vehicle manufacturer. We refer them to their owner's manual or the vehicle manufacturer for more information. But I don't believe we direct them at any point to go to the vehicle manufacturer.
Okay, item two. If the only person that has control over the warranty and what the rules are, have been told, is the Air Resources Board. Air Resources Board developed early on, 1980-ish and before, that the manufacturer was required to provide the data quarterly on the status of warranty issues to a location at the Air Resources Board. That position has never been filled, never been created. I have a document showing a list of things that are necessary in order for the Air Resources Board to consider a complaint to follow up and find out if, in fact, the car needs to get repaired. And that list is 2 pages long. And they can identify the car with one piece of data. They want 50 pieces of data, most of which have nothing to do with anything, while they're continuing to not even require the manufacturer to put the information up on the Air Resources Board website that the law requires. That's item 2. Item 3 is that we've been trying to get this done since 1980, 80. And I perceive that the procedure indicated was that have to put on information on the Vicky label into the Smog machine. What's going to require somebody to do that? Just the fact that they happen to feel good about it and somebody mentioned it in a meeting somewhere one day? I don't think that's going to get it done. How many of them don't even have a label? We already produced a system that informed people when they had a PZEV that was very accurate and incredibly effective, implemented in bar 97. All of that is completely applicable to the new machine in a very easy way to have implemented it all and incorporated it all, so you got them all instead of just a few that might come up when somebody happened to enter the information off the Vicky label.
Okay. Appreciate the comments. Thank you very much, Charlie. Any other comments, public comments?
This is the moderator. There are no additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
You may. Thank you.
Great. The Q&A feature is now closed.
And no further comments or questions from the Bar Advisory Group members. All right, Clay, you are excused. Thank you very much for the 3 presentations.
Thank you very much. And just to close, we're going to really continue to keep our foot on the pedal and enhance the California Vehicle Inspection System, despite all the challenges and other obstacles that have come up over the last 4 months. The team is working really hard, and I continue to encourage BAG members, consumers, and anybody else that has an idea in terms of how we can improve the system to get in contact with us and provide us that input. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, next presentation, our last actual presentation. The other ones that follow are just informational handouts in one case, and then just opening it up for public comment on other items not on the agenda. But our last presenter is Phil Hyrigs, recently joined us. He is a new air quality engineer with the Bureau of Automotive Repair, working in our engineering and research branch, here to give us the annual update and a presentation on our 2 smog check reports that are required. One is a requirement in state law, and the other one, the smog check performance report, and the other one is an annual report to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. So welcome, Phil.
All right, thank you, Pat.
Thank you for being so patient.
Oh, absolutely. I hope there's not too much of an echo in here, but
no.
This is the moderator.
Okay,
just
good.
real quick. Let me pass over presenter status to you, Phil, so you can flip through your slides.
Okay,
perfect.
great.
Thanks, Sarah. I was just about to ask for that.
And there we go.
Again, thanks to Pat. Thanks to the advisory group. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today. As Pat noted, I'm relatively new to BARB and took over this project really from Frank DiGenova, who'd done the last 2 or 3 annual smog check reports. And what we'll do today is go through. I just want to mention the annual reporting requirements. There's 2, primary annual reports that BAR is required to produce and provide. One is the smog check performance report, and that's the that'll be the bulk of the presentation today. And that's really the one that I've spent the bulk of my time on since I got to BAR in March. New to BAR, but certainly not new to smog check analyses. So it was like for me going home again. Much of the analysis that we'll present and that is presented in the report is based on random roadside data that BAR collects. And this report that was recently posted on BAR's website is based primarily on 2018 and 2019 data. Typically for these smog check performance reports, we like to use 2 years of data. And that gives us a full biennial cycle. The other piece of this is an independent review of the previous smog check performance report, and that's included as an attachment to the 2020 report. And it has the primary comments that St. Malo Solutions had provided with BAR's responses to those. Again, this is about the 10th in the series. It was it's mandated by AB 2289, which was enacted in 2010, and so we're continuing to provide updates to the BAG on the status of the program. Really, the second annual report, is a federal requirement that came out of the IM rule. It's part of CFR 40 CFR 51366, and that really looks at, in quite a lot of detail, smog check failure rates, retests, vehicles with no known outcome. There's on the order of 30 pages of table. It's very detailed. I know I looked at that in years past in doing various analyses, and so it mirrors a little bit the executive summary reports that are posted on BAR's website on a monthly basis, and I think an annual report is also put there. Anyway, this is required to be submitted to US EPA by July 31st. That has been done already, and it goes through CARB's executive office. So that kind of sets the stage. Like I said, what I'll talk about primarily, and can you see my cursor? Because I'll be using my cursor from now and then. Is that? Or no? Maybe I shouldn't. Okay.
This is the moderator. We're not able to see your cursor, unfortunately.
Okay. No, I was just double checking because I didn't want to start pointing out things and have people scratch their head. So I'll go through the primary findings of the report first, and then we'll talk a little bit in detail on the enforcement activities that BAR has put in place over the last few years, and what will, and one of the things that I sort of stumbled upon when I was looking at the data this year from 2018, 2019 is how well you can see the impacts of the enforcement activities in the roadside data. We'll get to that in a bit. But in terms of broad overview findings, if we look at the 2018, 2019 roadside data, the model year 2000 to 2006 OAS tested or OBD tested vehicles failed at a rate of about 18%. These are vehicles that were certified as passing and were captured at the roadside within a year of that time frame. And that compares to about 19% from last year. So pretty close. And these are overlapping samples, right? So the 2020 reports based on 2018, 2019 calendar year roadside data. The previous report was based on 2017, 2018 roadside data. And really, we see kind of a similar result for the 76 to 1999 ASM tailpipe tested vehicles, where average rate of failure of 19% in the current study versus 20% in last year's study. The other thing to note in this, one of the key elements of the kind of what led to, I believe, the AB 2289 is those vehicles that fail smog check are repaired to pass and then are failing on the road again within a year. In the work that was done in the sort of mid 2000s and was published by Sierra in 2009, those roadside data were showing about a 50% rate of vehicles, sort of those fail pass, and then those fail pass vehicles that are seen at the road again, they're failing again. That has dropped to about a third. So that's, to me, that's success. I know the last time I looked carefully at these data, it was in relation to that earlier Sierra study. That's all good news. Let me figure out how to get down. Oh, there we go. Okay, this slide kind of gives a little bit flavor around the enforcement activities and the impact that we've seen with the roadside data. We'll see a line graph in a couple slides that'll elucidate this first bullet a little bit more. But what we found was, just looking at the 2000 to 2012 model year vehicles certified at a vehicle or certified at a station whose license had been revoked, as a result of enforcement activity, they were failing at an average rate of 28% versus a failure rate of 14% for those certified at stations that were not subject to enforcement actions. And so, that to me is a big deal, and it shows that the activities are really having an influence on consumer and on station technician behavior. The other finding in terms of emissions analysis, and again, the emissions analysis is another thing required by AB 2289. And there, I would encourage folks to go download the report and take a look. There's a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of graphics, and one of the things that we do show is a lot of trends on as a function of sort of high performing stations and not high performing stations. And so what we found on the emissions side is, all of the smog check stations operated kind of in a same fashion as these high performing stations. Both bar and carb staff. Basically, we did this analysis together. Estimated that in 2019, SmogCheck could have gotten another 30 to 50 tons per day of ROG plus NOx emissions reductions. So we're and we continue to look for ways to incent consumer behavior, station behavior, and kind of identify fraud and problems in the program. So this slide touches on the fraud piece that I mentioned, and there are three big chunks here. The first one is kind of gives you the sense of how many filings were done from 2016 to 2019, and many of those were 17 and 18. Nearly 1,000 what we're calling data-only cases were filed with the Attorney General's office, resulting in 663 license revocations and 99 suspensions or probations. And by data only, what we mean is these cases were brought by really careful and really kind of clever analysis of the smog check data by BAR staff, where they looked carefully at, and this is primarily based on OIS data, and we're really looking to stamp out a lot of fraudulent activity that was being performed based on OBD simulators and surrogate vehicles, and so there's a big push for that, and you can see it in the data. So it's pretty impressive. It's a lot of work, a lot of cases, but I think to good result. So the second main bullet here speaks to certificate blocking or cert blocking, and what this does is, and this is a real time piece of software, where if an OS tested vehicle is suspected of fraud because of the data irregularity or mismatch in what we think we should be seeing from the vehicle, and I won't go into a lot of details on what we're looking for because we don't like to tip our hands too much. But there are certain fingerprints one can look at, and so if there's a lot of data irregularity in what we really think we should be seeing from a vehicle, those are shunted to referee for inspection. And what's interesting there, only about half of those vehicles ultimately receive a smog check certificate. So they're either driving around unregistered, sold out of state, or retired. And so, that's been very effective at reducing, some of this bad activity. And the industry has figured it out. And you can see there in the third sub-bullet that those block certificates dropped from about 1,300 a month in sort of the mid-2018 timeframe to about 350 a month since July of 2019. So, that's again, sort of testament to really kind of looking carefully at how to detect fraud and how to do our best to stop it. So that's on the OBD side. On the tailpipe test side, I know Frank and some others at BAR have been very active in looking at identifying clean gassing. And in February this year, BAR announced, and there's a press release that's cited in the Smog Check report, but there were 9 stations that BAR was taking administrative disciplinary action against for clean gassing. That's what that means. Clean gassing is, some bad actors will have a bottle of gas and or a surrogate vehicle that's clean and introduce that into the EIS machine, the analytical equipment, to sort of trick the system into passing the vehicle. So we're certainly not leaving the ASM testing element alone in terms of really trying to figure out how best to make sure folks are doing the right thing. So my last picture here is kind of harkens back to the piece I showed where we looked at vehicles that had received a passing score from stations that had their license revoked versus those that remained active and or at least valid. Some of those stations may have dropped out of the program, but not through enforcement activities. And what I did is I looked at this through, I think, May 1st of 2020 when I did this analysis, and just kind of looked at the roadside data and said, okay, what do the OBD failure rates look like for these guys? And we see a little bit of scatter on the data when we get into 2007, 8, 9, 10. There's drops and dips and the like. That's primarily related to smaller sample size. The pre-2005-ish, 2006-ish sample sizes are all 100 to 160 vehicles on that revoked licenses piece, and the numbers just drop as we go to the newer model years. The other interesting thing I thought when you look at the data a little bit more carefully is that of the total roadside tests from 2000 to maybe 2003 model year, about 8 to 10% of those were these revoked licenses. But then by the time you get into the newer model years, it's only a couple, 3%. So, those older vehicles are, failing and gravitating towards, some of these stations where they might be able to get through the system. So with that, that's what I had. And be happy to take any questions or comments.
All right. Thank you very much, Phil. Great presentation. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from the BAR Advisory Group. I do not see any hands raised by the advisory group members. Moderator, we can open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator. And at the request of Pat, I have opened up the Q&A portion. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please locate that question mark up in a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. And please type, I would like to make a public comment in that question box. We're sharing instructions up on the screen for your reference, and I'll pause a moment to allow members of the public to access that. Right, this is the moderator again. It looks like there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, you may do so. I do
Q&A
see a
feature's done.
hand that was raised by one of our bar advisory group members, Bud Rice, with the California Automotive Business Coalition.
Hi, thank you, Pat. And Phil, welcome aboard, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Well, thanks, Pat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you're under fire now. You're going to be getting it pretty soon. So that's good.
It's all good.
I did have a quick question, and I'm not sure that you kind of touched on it at all. But our concern has always been we've been dropping off years in terms of cars being tested. They've dropped off some of the older cars. Now they're taking out some of the newer cars. And I'm just wondering the effect on the testing pool, and if you have any thoughts about what that means to air quality. Because I think it all has an effect, especially the older cars that probably pollute the most, they ought to be on. And the ones that are newer, we're not getting a look-see at those cars until they're way down the road. I just think that has a negative impact on air quality. So I just kind of wondered if you had any thoughts on it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can take a shot at that. I'm sure Pat and others can weigh in on this as well. In terms of test volumes, about 15 to 16% of the overall test pool is 99 to 1976, and about 84% are OBD based tests. So yeah, as those older vehicles drop off, the number of ASM tests will be reduced. However, in terms of emissions impact, and there's a bar chart in the report that shows the contribution of sort of the different model year groups to ROG plus NOx emissions, and you still have the bulk of the emissions impact and to the inventory is from those pre-1999 model years. And so, those are important, I think, to really stay focused on and not just say, oh gosh, they're old, why bother with them? What I've found over the years is in California in particular, cars last a lot longer, right? I remember the first time I went to Detroit on work in probably 1986-ish. I was struck by all the vehicles rusted out, from salting the roads, and so you don't have that in California, and so you've got this pool of vehicles that really, in my view, tend to last longer. On the newer side, I'd say a couple things. Yeah, the first Smog inspection is at year 8. Many of those would still be covered under warranty up through, emissions control system warranty. So, if the mill goes on, hopefully those folks will seek repair. And so I guess I'd turn it over to some of my colleagues to address issues that I likely missed on that one.
Hey, Bud, Clay Lake with the Bar Executive Office. I guess it's a great comment. I would point you to some research done by the Air Resources Board that was presented a few BAG meetings ago. There was a really interesting study done, and I think it is really relevant in terms of how to answer your question, and frankly, a lot more eloquent than I could state it. So I can certainly point you to that study offline, but Alan Lyons over at Air Resources Board, I believe, presented that study at a BAG meeting 3 or 4 BAGs ago, and it's a really good source of information.
Thank you, Clay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you both, Clay and Phil, for responding to Bud's question. Let's see, Nikki Ayers with Independent Automotive Professionals Association. Did I see your hand go up, Nikki?
This is the moderator. It looks like Nikki fell out of the panelist. So thank you, Nikki, for raising your hand so we could find you. I'll promote you back up to a panelist.
Sorry, I keep getting kicked off. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
Is there any effect in here from the Volkswagen issue?
I didn't specifically look for that. We were primarily focused on gasoline. I guess the diesels would fall into some of the OBD, the OBD data. But I'll have to admit, I did not specifically look for that in the data. Like I said, there may be others, some of my colleagues that have taken a closer look at the Volkswagen issue.
I just wondered. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, Phil, I think we are done. Thank you very much for your first ever presentation, I think, before the Bar Advisory Group, unless you appeared before us in some other capacity, but certainly your first time as a bar employee.
As a bar employee, yeah, no, but I presented to the IM review committee back in
many years ago.
2000. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So like I said, it was like going home here.
Yeah. All right, great job. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next agenda item, I think we'll be real quick on these. This is a handout only, and actually it's 2 handouts since we missed and canceled our April meeting. We have the 3rd quarter. This is fiscal quarter, 3rd and 4th quarter enforcement statistics. Those were handouts provided to the Bar Advisory Group members. Any questions or comments from the Bar Advisory Group? Nikki, your hand is still up. I'm not sure if you have a question or just still had it raised from the last agenda item. Nope. Looks like the hand went down. Okay. Seeing no comments from the advisory group members, we can ask for any public comments relative to the handouts, although I don't know if anyone had an ability did the handouts. All the presentations have not gone out, and they will go up on our website after the meeting. So I'm not sure anyone's had a chance to see these yet, other than the Bar Advisory Group members. But we can open it up for public comment.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the Bureau Chief, I'll go ahead and open up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon of a question mark within a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. Currently have instructions up on the screen for your reference right now, and I will pause a moment to allow any members of the public to access that Q&A feature.
All right, it looks like we will not get any comments on the enforcement statistics.
Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes.
All right, Q&A feature is now closed.
Okay, now for public comment on any items that were not on the agenda. We'll open it up to Bar Advisory Group members. Any last comments or questions? Maybe agenda items for the October meeting? I do not see any hands raised from the advisory group members. We can open up this agenda item for public comment.
All right. At the direction of the Bureau Chief, I will open up the Q&A feature now. Once again, members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click on the icon with a question mark and a square located at the bottom center of your WebEx screen. Currently sharing instructions on the screen for your reference. We'll pause a moment to allow you to access that Q&A feature. All right, this is the moderator again. I don't see any individual who has indicated they would like to make public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature now?
Yes, you may do so. Thank you.
All right, the Q&A feature is now closed.
I do see Charlie Peters' hand having been raised, still not able to use, I guess, the public comment feature. Any last comments, Mr. Peters, under this last agenda item, public comment on items not on the agenda? If you could make your comments as brief as possible. Thank you.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chief?
I can hear you.
Wow, cool. I'm using just my computer. This is great. The meeting that took place following your last public meeting, I had the great pleasure of meeting with you and the director and a couple of other very important people, and a meeting that took place in the director's office. And I ended up seeing a response. I took 2 items there, and neither of them are completed at this point. And I have written a letter to the secretary because I am of the impression that those items that everybody's familiar with amount to about $500 million a year in direct economic impact to California, besides the ancillary effects of health and air quality and consumer performance and so on and so forth. So that's still open and still needing to be on the agenda and be discussed. It was discussed to a certain extent here today, but at least a portion of that I am not smart enough to figure out how to be able to participate. And the second item was the issue that we brought up on numerous occasions, the issue of the use of ethanol in the gasoline. We would like to see it made voluntary instead of required. And we think that that could make a significant reduction in the price, as well as create credits to fix the roads and make a significant improvement in the economy and the environment and global warming in the state of California. We'd like to see somebody make a presentation on that. You've mentioned it previously, and we'd love to see that back on the agenda if you could, sir.
Thank you. Charlie, I believe we have reached out to the California Air Resources Board on that issue. I don't know that we have had any success in, certainly we haven't, because we haven't had anyone on the agenda, but we'll continue to reach out and do our best to get someone from that organization and see if they might be open to giving a presentation on that issue. Thank you. All right. Any other comments for the good of the order for this meeting? All right, we're almost there, guys. Our last item before we adjourn is our next BAR Advisory Group meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 22nd, 2020. I thought today's meeting went very well. Obviously, we ran longer than we thought we would. We normally schedule these till 1 p.m. I think we were under the false impression that this would go faster. And I think we've learned that there's some delays and some things that don't work as smoothly as an in-person meeting. But all in all, I'm very pleased with how things went today, and I really appreciate everyone for being a part of this meeting who's here with us today. Thursday, October 22nd, 2020, our next advisory group meeting. I think it's time to try and schedule in conjunction with that meeting as we try to do in conjunction with these meetings, a regulatory workshop. If there's something that's ready for prime time viewing and unveiling, we would like to do that. I think the biometrics regulation package might be in further along in the development process that we can share that with everyone, as well as a regulatory proposal perhaps to expand the citation program beyond smog check and unlicensed activity, as we discussed earlier today. So those might be opportunities to have workshops. Again, the third item that I think Mr. Ruben Parra brought up is a workshop relating to the regulatory package to bring our certified training providers regulations in line with our licensing program, and giving an update on that might be in order as well if we're at that point where that's ready to be shared with everyone. Anyway, in the meantime, between now and October, please feel free to reach out to myself or our assistant here in the front office, Zach Richardson, to offer up any potential agenda items for this next meeting. I do not know that we'll be in a position to meet in person. I suspect that much of what we're experiencing today will going to plan for this to be the way we are doing business for the foreseeable future. So a WebEx meeting in October is very likely. If there's the potential to hold it in person, we certainly will, but be prepared for this format again in October. Anyway, without, I guess if there's no other questions or comments, I'll just give a quick scan of the advisory group participants. And no hands are raised. So we'll call an end to that agenda item. And we will now move to adjournment. And I will close the meeting today, Thursday, July 16, 2020's meeting of the Bar Advisory Group is adjourned at 1:17 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance and participation. I really want to reach out and make a special call out to Sarah Arani and the Solid Training Solutions team at the Department of Consumer Affairs for moderating this event. We could not have done it without you. Thank you so much for your work with us to pull this meeting, this first ever virtual meeting of this group off. I think it went really well. Thank you so much. Thank you also to our webcaster, Cesar. You have always been there for us. Thank you again for doing the webcasting of this meeting. It'll be up and on our website next week. And also, final thanks to all of our presenters. Great job to all of you. And then lastly, our assistant here in the front office, Zach Richardson, did a great job in putting this together. Thank you, Zach. He's just a few steps away from my office here, so he can hear me both on this meeting call as well as just outside the door here. But thanks to him for pulling off all the planning that went on with this event. All right, now we're adjourned, 1:18 p.m. Goodbye. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the summer, and we'll see you in October.
Thank you, Pat, to you and your team. Thank you.
Everybody.